Chapter 311. When the call connected, there was no response from Tang Wan. Yang Chung thought that the phone was broken, but hearing the faint breathing sound, he knew that it was Tang Wan who didn't know what to say. Yang Chung chuckled. "What? Are you testing my hearing to see if I can hear your breathing?" Tang Wan finally opened her mouth. "Are you still angry?" "Angry? When have I ever been angry?" Yang Chung asked. "I blamed you wrongly last time. I was too anxious at that time. I only found out what was going on yesterday." Tang Wan spoke very softly, a little timid. Compared to her previous strong attitude, she was much more docile. Yang Chung laughed. "It's good that you know I'm really not angry. Then how about I treat you to a meal tomorrow? It's Christmas. Take it as an apology." Tang Wan asked. "I have something to do tomorrow. You're not at fault. I didn't know that Tang Tang is your daughter, or else I wouldn't have made such a mistake," Yang Chung said. Tang Wan seemed to feel that Yang Chung still hadn't forgiven her. "Do you hate me? I was so reckless and said such unpleasant words." "You're not reckless at all. I can understand your mentality as a mother. Moreover, that girl is indeed worrisome. It's just that I've been really busy these few days. Next week, the company will take a vacation to Japan. I think we should wait until the new year," Yang Chung said. Tang Wan was a little disappointed. "All right, I'll contact you after the new year. After the new year, I'll be 40 years old. Will you think that I'm too old and not want to talk to me?" "What nonsense are you talking about? Do you think you look like a 40-year-old woman? If there's a gap between us, it should be Tang Tang's problem. You're Tang Tang's mother. To be honest, if there's really something between us, although we're both adults, it still feels weird," Yang Chun said truthfully. "It should be hard for Tang Tang to accept." Tang Wan smiled with self-reproach. "Fortunately, nothing happened with you that night. Otherwise, I really wouldn't have the face to see Tang Tang. I want to use this time to calm myself down and think about what kind of feelings I have for you. See you after the new year." Tang Wan's generous expression made Yang Chung feel helpless and relaxed. This woman would frankly say that she wanted to spend the night with you, but she would also bluntly say that she was hesitating. Yang Chen didn't think too much about it. He couldn't say whether he loved Tang Wan or not, but he liked her. He liked Tang Wan's mature and beautiful body and her temperament. Furthermore, she was the one who suggested to have an intimate relationship without any responsibility. Yang Chen admitted that he didn't have the strength to reject her. After hanging up, Ching aimed his spear at Mo Qian's bedroom. Walking to the bedroom, he knocked on the door and asked, "Little Qian, why are you bathing in the bedroom?" Mo Qian's voice came out after a long time. "I fell asleep." Yang Chung didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This was like a wretched uncle seducing a little girl, and this little girl was even lying with her eyes wide open. "If you don't open the door, then I'll kick it open. You know that I have the strength to do so," Yang Chung said. You can sleep on the sofa," Mo Qian anxiously said. "Is this something you should say to your man?" Yang Chung pretended to be angry. After a moment of silence, Mo Qian cautiously opened the door with a pink pillow in her arms. She looked at Yang Chung with a little fear and said, "I'm very nervous. Can you just sleep? Don't do that kind of thing." Wasn't this asking for Yang Cheng's life? There was a charming woman beside him that he could only look at but not touch. "Why are you nervous? Didn't we do it in the villa last time?" Yang Chung asked gloomily. "It hurt too much after that last time. It hurt for 3 days after that," Mo Qian said in a low voice with lingering fear. Only then did Yang Chung remember that last time at the farm, he couldn't hold back and pressed down on Mo Qian twice. It was Mo Qian's first time doing that, and after being hit by a torrential downpour, it might have left a psychological after effect. In this kind of situation, the more she didn't come into contact with it, the more afraid she would be in the future. Yang Qing knew that the best way was to let Mo Qian experience all kinds of fun, but he couldn't let her get hurt again. This way, the fear in her heart would be eliminated. Yang Qing walked forward and hugged Mo Qian. "Call me hubby." Mo Qian felt the warmth of the man and smelled the familiar scent. Her heart was at peace, and she shyly called, "Hubby." "Dear, try again, okay? If you don't feel comfortable, I won't do it again," Yang Chang said gently. Mo Qian struggled a little, and finally responded softly. Yangcheng hugged the soft body in his arms and fell on the soft mattress. He turned off the light in the bedroom, leaving only a bedside lamp on. In the dim light, Mo Chinny's long hair was like ink, and her face was like jade. She bit her rosy thin lips, and her beauty was unparalleled. With gentle movements, Yangcheng slowly pushed Mo Chinny's arms away and gave her a look to let her believe him. Only then did he start to remove the woman's restraints after a period of gentle entanglement. Mo Chinny softly nestled in Yangcheng's arms. She didn't wear any clothes, but a thick quilt, and the two were closely pressed together. Yangcheng looked down and saw Mo Chinny smiling. Her eyes were closed, and her curved eyelashes were slightly trembling, as if she was enjoying it very much. "You won't be afraid in the future, right?" Yangcheng asked. Mo Chinny answered in a daze. "You have to do this every time. Don't treat me like the first time. I promise you will feel comfortable every time." Yangcheng said, and thought to himself, "As long as I'm not afraid, I can control what I do." After a day, Yangcheng also felt a little tired. He hugged Mo Chinny and fell asleep. Because there was a warm and soft body next to him, Yangcheng slept especially well. In the blink of an eye, the night passed. The sky outside was still dark, but Yangcheng felt something falling on his eyebrows like raindrops. Yangcheng moved his head and opened his eyes. In front of him was Mo Chinny, who had already put on her pajamas. Her bare face looked very fresh, and she was looking at him with a smile. Yangcheng yawned and said with a bitter smile, "What's the matter? Why are you up so early? I remember it's the weekend today." 147, 141. Mo Chinny said with a bit of excitement. "What 147, 141? Yangcheng rubbed his eyes and asked. Mo Chinny was like a naive child who had eaten honey. She happily said, "Your left eyebrow, 147, and your right eyebrow didn't count all of them. There are still a few left, but I counted 141. Yangcheng thought that he had heard wrongly and asked in astonishment and helplessness, "Why are you counting my eyebrows?" Mo Chinny looked at Yangcheng's eyes in a daze. "I read a book before. The woman in the book loves her man, and she even knows how many eyebrows that man has. I can't count it every day, so of course I have to seize the opportunity." The smile on Yangcheng's face disappeared, and he stared blankly at the somewhat silly woman in front of him. He felt that whatever he said at this moment would seem so pale. "Why do you always make me feel like I've let you down? Little Chanchian, a real vixen, should be like you. Other women use their bodies to seduce men, but you use your heart to make me not even have a chance to breathe." Yangcheng hugged Mo Chinny's body tightly and said with a smile, "Do you want me to suffocate? It's not that serious." Mo Chinny pursed her lips and smiled. "You're awake. I'll go make breakfast." Just as Mo Chinny was about to get up, she was pulled back onto the bed by Yangcheng. "Yo, what are you doing?" Mo Chinny's heart trembled, afraid that Yangcheng would want to do that again. Yangcheng said seriously, "It's not fair. You counted mine, but I haven't counted yours yet. Obediently don't move. Let me count your eyebrows." Only then did Mo Chinny react. She was both angry and amused. In the end, she simply threw herself onto Yangcheng's chest and giggled. Chapter 312. After having breakfast at Mo Chinny's house, Yangcheng drove directly to the intersection where he had agreed to meet Jinxiu. Because it was Christmas and it was snowing, the whole of Zhonghai was filled with an atmosphere of singing and laughter. Many people pretended to be Santa Claus, promoting their shops on the street, and some gave some small gifts to attract customers. When he saw Jinxiu, she was already wearing a purple coat with a fur collar and a knitted hat. She was standing in the cold wind, waiting for him. Yangcheng rolled down the window and shouted, "Jinxiu." Only then did the girl timidly get into Yangcheng's car. But because she had not been in a car before, it took her a while to even open the door. "Didn't you say 9 o'clock? I'm already here. Why are you still standing here? Look at you. Your nose is red." Yangcheng said with pity. Jinxiu smiled brightly. "It's okay. I don't sleep late, and I don't have the habit of staying in the quilt in winter." Yangcheng knew that this child also grew up with hardship, so he didn't say much and asked, "What gifts do you think children like?" Jinxiu thought for a moment. Buy candy. The orphanage doesn't lack clothes, but there are not many snacks. It's Christmas, so buy some sweet snacks and candy. The children will like them. Yangqing naturally had no objection. He really didn't know how to communicate with children. The last time he went to the orphanage, he was ignored by the children. Therefore, Yangqing drove directly to the nearest department store and took Jinxiu into the mall, which was not crowded yet. When passing by a shop selling electronic products, Yangqing held Jinxiu's hand. Jinxiu felt her hand being held by Yangqing, and her pretty face blushed. Brother Yang, what's wrong? Yangqing didn't think much about it. He just took Jinxiu to a counter that sold mobile phones and said, I can't always go to your stall when I contact you in the future. I'll give you a mobile phone. Before Jinxiu could refuse, Yangqing said, Today is Christmas, and it will be the new year in a few days. Just take it as a gift from your brother to your sister. Didn't you give me a platinum pendant last time? I want to give you one too. Pick a style that you like, and I'll get it done for you. You'll have to pay the phone bill yourself in the future. How about that? Jinxiu saw that Yangqing was about to get angry if she refused. She was touched and didn't refuse again. She looked around and chose a small and cheap phone. After all, this was an era of advanced information technology. Buying a mobile phone, going through all the procedures, and connecting to the internet would take less than half an hour. When Yangqing saw Jinxiu holding the first mobile phone in her life with a lovely smile, he was quite happy in his heart. Perhaps it was because they both grew up without parents, or because they grew up in adversity, or because of a series of fated encounters between the two of them. Yangqing felt that his fondness for Jinxiu surprised even himself. It was as if this stubborn girl was really his younger sister. Brother Yang, can I call you in the future? Jinxiu carefully closed the cover of the mobile phone and asked Yangqing with a red face that might have been blown by the heater. Yangqing smiled. Of course, otherwise, why would I buy it for you? Anytime? Jinxiu asked softly with expectation. Yes. Yangqing nodded. Jinxiu's big bright eyes turned into crescent moons when she smiled. Originally, Yangqing wanted to take Jinxiu to buy a new set of clothes. According to the customs of Huaxia, people should change into new clothes during the Chinese New Year, but Jinxiu stubbornly refused this time. She refused no matter what. Yangqing was afraid that the little girl would really get angry and not do anything, so he didn't force her. After buying candy and some small gifts, it was almost 11 o'clock. Yangqing put the two big bags into the trunk of the car and went to New Hope Orphanage with Jinxiu. When they arrived at the old orphanage again, Yangqing saw that there was a medium-sized Christmas tree at the entrance of the courtyard. Stars, dolls, and other decorations were hung on the Christmas tree. It was beautifully decorated. Neon lights were hanging on the door frame, flashing all kinds of colorful lights. White snow fell on a few old pine trees, bending the branches a little. On the walls of the house, the vines of the creepers were also stained with snow. Although the leaves had withered, they still gave off a special sense of hierarchy. Jinxiu got out of the car and looked at the orphanage's gate that she hadn't seen for a long time. Her eyes were slightly moist. Go in. President Cha will be very happy to see you. Yangqing took two big bags of gift from the car and said to Jinxiu. Jinxiu nodded and took a big bag from Yangqing's hand. She carried it with both hands and said, I'll take a bag too. I'm grateful that Brother Yang came with me. I can't let you do this for me all the time. Yangqing was a little helpless at this girl's clear reasoning. He just let her be. The two of them walked up the stairs and were about to enter the gate of the orphanage. Unexpectedly, two tall, ordinary-looking women in black suits and earphones suddenly blocked the door. They were tall and slender and had ordinary looks, but a bit heroic. I'm sorry. Visitors are not allowed here for the time being. One of the women with a ponytail said coldly and emotionlessly. Yangqing furrowed his brows. If he wasn't mistaken, the two women in front of him had an aura of hostility from the military. They should be female soldiers who had undergone professional special forces training. However, they seemed to be the bodyguards of an important person. We're here to see the children. This girl came from this orphanage. Today, she's here to see the president and her siblings. Please make an exception. Yangqing knew that they were here for work. He didn't have any temper and wanted to talk to them nicely. The female bodyguard with a ponytail glanced at the big bags in their hands and shook her head. You can come back another day or in the afternoon. Jinxiu was a little disappointed. She looked into the door and pulled on Yang Cheng's sleeve. Forget it, Brother Yang. There should be some important person inside. Let's come back another day. Is it still Christmas? Yang Cheng said. It's okay. It's okay if it's later. Jinxiu said faintly. Yang Cheng said to the female bodyguard with a ponytail, how about this? One of you go in and tell President Cha that it's Su Jinxiu. Let's see if she's willing to see us. The other female bodyguard with short hair seemed to find it funny. Don't you understand? Asking you to come back in the afternoon or another day is not a matter of whether the president wants to see you or not. It's just that you're not allowed to go in right now. With that said, Yang Cheng was unhappy. He was being reasonable with them, not forcing his way in. It was a normal Christmas morning. Two people who wanted to visit the children of the orphanage rushed in without any knives or machine guns. They were holding candy in their hands and politely asking them to make an exception or inform them. In such a situation, even if they were not allowed to go in, they should at least go in and ask. Moreover, even if the leaders of the central government came to visit, there was no reason to chase them away like this. Yang Cheng's face didn't look good. I'll say it one last time. Go in and ask. Tell them that Su Jinxiu is back. If you don't say it, then don't blame me for doing something that I don't like to do. The bodyguard with a ponytail frowned and didn't say anything. The female bodyguard with short hair seemed to have heard a joke. She asked sarcastically, oh, what is it that you don't like to do? Just do it. Yang Cheng didn't say anything more and walked directly into the door. When the two female bodyguards saw that Yang Cheng wanted to walk in openly, their faces turned cold. They wanted to step forward and grab Yang Cheng's hand at the same time. Each of them hooked their feet on the back of Yang Cheng's legs, trying to subdue Yang Cheng. But Yang Cheng's hands and legs were like reinforced concrete. He didn't move an inch when the two women's grappling skills hit him. The two female bodyguards were shocked. Their strength was not that of ordinary women. Even the ordinary male special forces soldiers in the military camp could not catch up to them. Their legs were at least 100 kilograms in weight, and the strength of their arms also had an explosive force of more than 100 kilograms. However, this man's weak body was bearing a total of more than 400 kilograms of weight, but he didn't react at all. He was still walking in danger. The two women immediately thought that this was simply a top assassin who intended to harm the people inside. Suddenly, the two female bodyguards withdrew their bodies and took out their guns from their arms. The two muzzles, one on the left and one on the right, instantly aimed at Yang Cheng's head. Put down the things in your hands. Raise your hands high and don't move. The bodyguard with a ponytail shouted. Yang Cheng glanced at the two coldly, then looked back at Jinxiu, who was scared silly behind him. If it was according to my habits, you should be dead by now. But I really don't want to kill people in this place, and I don't want to kill you in front of this girl. I will count to 3. If you don't take back your guns, I can only do what I don't want to do. Oof, do you think we are scared? The short-haired bodyguard sneered. Obviously, she didn't take Yang Cheng's words seriously. Yang Cheng sighed. To kill the two silly female bodyguards in front of Jinxiu on Christmas, in the orphanage, this day was really unlucky. As for how to deal with the aftermath after killing them, it wasn't within the scope of Yang Cheng's consideration. It wasn't recklessness, but some things of principle. He would do it first and care about the rest later. But just as Yang Cheng was about to kill the two female bodyguards without drawing blood, a clear female voice came from the corridor not far away. Stop! Little one, little Li, what are you doing? Put down the guns. He saw a woman wearing a simple yet elegant winter dress and a white cashmere scarf walking over. One could vaguely see the traces of age on her smooth face, but her dignified and beautiful appearance still made the woman extremely charming. The woman's hair was tied up in a bun, clean and clear, without a trace of gray. She must have taken good care of her hair, and although there was a hint of reproach in her gentle eyes, it didn't make people uncomfortable. When Yang Cheng saw this woman, he felt that she was a little familiar. He didn't know where he had seen her before, but he couldn't remember. Madam, it's dangerous. Don't come over first. The ponytailed female bodyguard called Little One said loudly. The woman didn't listen to them. They are here to see the children, and they aren't holding weapons in their hands. What are you doing? Before the woman finished speaking, Director Cha, who seemed old due to her age, followed up from behind and shouted excitedly, Jinxiu? Is that Jinxiu? Jinxiu, who was standing at the door, was still trembling with fear. When she heard the familiar voice, she immediately ran up and threw herself into Director Cha's arms. Still not putting them down? The woman said to the two female bodyguards with a slight reproach. Little One and Little Lee looked at each other awkwardly and put away the guns in their hands, but they still looked at Yang Cheng with vigilance. Chapter 3:13. President Cha and Jinxiu hugged each other. Tears streamed down his wrinkled face, and he couldn't stop the tears from flowing. Jinxiu's eyes were also red from crying. She murmured "Grandma," as if she wanted to pour out all the grievances she had suffered outside and how much she missed her family. Principal, is this the child you mentioned who hasn't come back for a long time? The woman asked with a sad tone. Principal Cha seemed to be very respectful towards this woman, but she couldn't say anything as she cried. She could only hug Jinxiu's petite body and nod. The woman smiled and said, It's good that you're back. You must have suffered a lot outside. You can be considered a sensible child. Principal Cha stroked Jinxiu's black hair and comforted Jinxiu, but she couldn't care about anything else. The woman turned around and smiled apologetically at Yang Cheng. Young man, I'm sorry. These two children were just worried about my safety. Actually, they didn't mean any harm. Don't take it to heart. How could someone who is willing to come here to see the children be a malicious person? You won't hold a grudge against them, right? Yang Cheng looked at the face that was like a spring breeze in front of him. The few traces of dissatisfaction in his heart unknowingly disappeared. He couldn't help but sigh that this woman was really amazing. Her words and demeanor were extremely gentle, making it impossible for people to get angry. It was like a huge force had fallen on a sponge ball, and it disappeared without a trace. If it wasn't because she was born this way, then it was because she had been cultivating herself for many years. Forget it. I'm just accompanying Jinxiu back to see the principal and the children. I don't want to cause any trouble, Yang Cheng said lightly. Do you think we're afraid of you? Little Lee's eyes widened. The woman frowned and lowered her voice. Isn't that enough? Little One and Little Lee saw that the woman seemed to be really angry, so they calmed down and lowered their heads angrily. The woman shook her head and sighed helplessly. She turned around and said to Director Cha, Director Cha, I won't stay here and delay your reunion with your child. You two must have a lot to talk about. I still have to go to the orphanage in the neighboring city, so I'll be leaving first. When Principal Cha heard that the woman wanted to leave, he quickly let go of Jinxiu and urged her to stay. Madam, please eat before you leave. The children are very grateful for the gifts you sent. No, my schedule is very tight. I really can't delay it. Please tell the children that I'll be back after the new year, the woman said kindly. President Cha seemed to know that the woman was telling the truth, so he did not try to persuade her to stay. He bowed respectfully and said, Madam, I hope that your family will be healthy in the coming year. How can I accept this? The woman smiled as she helped President Cha up. I'm a junior. It's more appropriate for me to bow to you, President. I'm doing this on behalf of the children, President Cha said with a smile. The woman smiled as she looked at the entire courtyard. She then turned around and nodded at Yang Cheng as a sign of farewell. She then brought the two female bodyguards, Little One and Little Lee, out of the courtyard. Yang Cheng also nodded at the woman. As for the warning glances that Little One and Little Lee gave Yang Cheng treated it as sand entering his eyes and didn't see it. Sir, I didn't expect it to be you again. Every time you come, there's always good news. I didn't expect that girl Jinxiu would come back with you, President Cha said emotionally. Yang Cheng picked up 2 bags of sweets and snacks and said with a smile, President, let's put aside the matter of why I brought Jinxiu back first. I think we should give the children gifts first. Sigh. All right, it must be tiring for you to carry them. President Cha's wrinkles seemed to have widened from her smile as she led Yang Cheng and Jinxiu into the courtyard. Outside the orphanage, beside a quiet parking space, The woman who was about to enter a white infinity stopped in her tracks. She seemed to be thinking about something as she asked the two female bodyguards, Little One and Little Lee, who were following behind her. "Did you guys ask the name of that young man just now?" Little One shook her head. "We didn't ask." "Why, madam? Is it important?" "If madam wants to know, I can ask him now." A trace of doubt flashed across the woman's eyes. Then she laughed as if she was mocking herself. "Maybe I'm thinking too much. How could something like that be possible? Sigh, you guys didn't even ask who he was before you made a move and pulled out your gun. Do you think you can pull out a gun so casually?" "Madam, the chief told us to protect you, especially with the election at the beginning of next year. Your safety can't be compromised at such an important juncture," Little Lee said, feeling wronged. The woman looked disappointed, as if she wasn't interested in the election. She didn't say anything else and slowly entered the car. At the same time, Yang Chung, who was following President Cha into the courtyard, finally understood who that woman was. Wasn't she the portrait hanging in the largest corridor of the orphanage, the founder of the orphanage, the woman named Guo Shuahua? No wonder the president was so respectful towards her. She looked familiar to him. She must have been inspecting the orphanage that she founded since it was the end of the year. Coincidentally, she came here today. After seeing her in person, Yang Chung realized that the portrait really couldn't express her true temperament. That kind of heartwarming smile couldn't be felt through the cold oil painting at all. Since it was lunchtime, President Cha let Jinxiu and Yang Chung have lunch together with the children. Everyone had lunch in a big dining hall. Afterward, President Cha naturally pulled Jinxiu back to her office and talked for a while. Knowing that Jinxiu was running a small business outside and didn't have to sleep on the streets without food or warm clothes, she felt a little better. She also asked Jinxiu how she knew Yang Chung and so on. As for Jinxiu becoming a delinquent girl, playing with motorcycles, and becoming a pickpocket, Jinxiu obviously didn't say anything. This wasn't a matter of honesty, but she was worried that the president wouldn't be able to bear it. Yang Chung dozed off alone in the orphanage in the afternoon, but he wasn't bored. Naughty children often came to tease Yang Chung. They either wanted to draw a turtle on Yang Cheng's face or wanted to tie a rope between Yang Cheng's feet, which made Yang Chung dumbfounded. When the sun was setting, the children had to go to their evening classes. President Cha had to take care of the children, so she reluctantly said goodbye to Jinxiu and reminded Jinxiu to remember to come back often. Jinxiu ran back to Yang Chung. Although she had talked for the whole afternoon, her little face didn't show any fatigue. Instead, it was full of joy. "You had a good talk. Wouldn't it be better if you came back earlier?" Yang Chung said with a smile. Jinxiu pouted. "I was afraid of being scolded by my grandmother, and I also felt ashamed to come back here. If it weren't for Brother Yang, I would probably have to wait until next year. Come back often, the president is an elder." Yang Chung didn't say anything more. Jinxiu nodded knowingly, with a bit of sadness in her eyes. "Brother Yang, can you accompany me to a place?" Jinxiu suddenly raised her head and asked. Yang Chung thought that Jinxiu was going to go back, but he didn't expect that there was a place she wanted to go. But since he accompanied her out, there was no reason not to satisfy her little request. The place that Jinxiu wanted to go to was not a special place. It was just a small playground behind the orphanage. There were some slides, climbing poles, swings, and other large toys. It was a place where the children in the orphanage played and played on a daily basis. Jinxiu's eyes were full of nostalgia as she touched the various equipment in the courtyard. Finally, she sat on a swing and swung it leisurely. Yang Chung followed her and sat on another swing side by side. The gate of the orphanage could be seen directly opposite the swing. When I was a child, I would sit here almost every day, watching the sun go down in the sky, waiting for my grandmother to call us for dinner. Jinxiu seemed to be muttering to herself. When I dream, I often dream of this scene, as if it happened yesterday. Yang Chung listened quietly. At this moment, Jinxiu didn't look like an 18-year-old girl at all. The sadness and vicissitudes between her eyebrows were not something that children under the love of their parents could have. It was not a very good thing, but it made people dare not ignore this girl's strong heart. Jinxiu turned her head and asked Yang Cheng with a sweet smile, "Brother Yang, do you know what I thought about every day when I sat here when I was a child?" Yang Cheng pondered for a moment. "You're not thinking about what to eat for dinner, are you?" Jinxiu pouted. "I'm not that greedy. Then what are you thinking about?" Jinxiu smiled bitterly. Her eyes were full of nostalgia. "I was thinking whether a couple, or a man, or a woman would walk in from the gate. Then they would turn to look at me and smile at me. When that person walked in front of me, he would say, 'Little girl, will you be my daughter?' At that time, I thought that I would definitely say yes. No matter what kind of person he was, as long as he was willing to adopt me, I would go with him. Because that was the only way I could have my parents again." Seeing that Yang Cheng was looking at her, Jinxiu bit her thin lips. "However, most of my friends around me were adopted, and no one came to adopt me, so I didn't think about it anymore." Yang Cheng was silent. In his mind, the scene of a little girl sitting alone on a swing under the setting sun, looking at the empty gate appeared. Day after day, year after year, that kind of heart-wrenching days must be very hard to bear. "Brother Yang, do you know why I don't want to study or repeat my studies?" Jinxiu said, faintly, "When I was in school, other people knew that I was from an orphanage. The children would laugh at me for being born out of a rock and not having parents. After I grew up, my classmates in junior high were not willing to be with me. Some boys were unwilling to do their homework and asked me to do it for them. If I refused, they would bully me and even beat me. They would hide my lunchbox and not let me eat. To me, reading was not so much a study as a torment, a torture. Brother Yang, in fact, I used to ride motorcycles with those people, fight, and be a thief. It was during junior high that I became like that, because if I didn't fight back, they would bully me even more. I know that I can only rely on myself because I don't have parents to help me. If I want to survive in this world, I can only rely on my own fists." Jinxiu. Yang Cheng turned his head and looked at Jinxiu. "Sit on the swing and don't move." "Huh?" Jinxiu wondered what Yang Cheng was going to do, but she still sat on the swing obediently and didn't move. Yang Cheng got up and walked out of the courtyard. He walked all the way out of the orphanage. Just when Jinxiu was confused, Yang Cheng walked in again. She saw that Yang Cheng looked around for a while, as if he didn't know this place. Then he saw Jinxiu sitting on the swing. Yang Cheng showed a slightly surprised smile and walked step by step toward Jinxiu. He gradually approached Jinxiu until he was in front of her. Yang Cheng squatted down, reached out a hand, and held Jinxiu's white hand that was calloused from hard work. Jinxiu's cheeks were pink, but she didn't know why Yang Cheng held her hand. Yang Cheng seemed to see Jinxiu for the first time. His appreciative eyes lingered on Jinxiu's face for a long time. "Ah, what a beautiful little girl. I can't bear to let you go when I see you. Little girl, come home with me, okay? Although I'm a bit too young to be your father, can you be my sister?" Jinxiu's heart seemed to be covered by a wave of sweetness. She wanted to laugh because of the sudden happiness and touching, but when her emotions reached the peak, it all turned into tears of joy. She couldn't help but drop her tears on the snow like a broken string, and the hot tears melted the snow. "Why are you crying? You won't look good if you cry." Yang Cheng said softly, "Answer me. Are you willing?" Jinxiu nodded vigorously. I'm willing. To be my sister, it's not enough to just be beautiful. You also have to have good grades. If I send you to study, you have to study hard. Can you do that?" Yang Cheng asked seriously. Jinxiu held back her laughter and said in a childish voice, "But brother, what if someone bullies your sister? If anyone dares to bully my sister, I'll beat him to death." Yang Cheng said methodically. Jinxiu finally couldn't control her emotions that were on the verge of collapse. With a cry, she threw herself into Yang Cheng's arms. Her tears instantly soaked Yang Cheng's chest. Yang Cheng gently patted Jinxiu's back and said softly and solemnly in Jinxiu's ear, "Jinxiu, if you think that in this world everyone has wronged you, then you must remember that there is such a person who will let the whole world down for you." Chapter 314. Since it was Christmas Eve, Yang Cheng didn't want to see Jinxiu spend the holidays alone in her rented house. Thus, despite Jinxiu's refusal, he brought Jinxiu back to the villa in Dragon Garden. Lin Ruoxi probably hoped that he would do the same. After all, Lin Ruoxi had watched Jinxiu grow up, although she wasn't much older than Jinxiu. When he brought Jinxiu home, the three women were busy chatting in the kitchen. It was rare that Lin Ruoxi had returned home early. Naturally, Huilin followed her back home obediently. Lin Ruoxi didn't forget the cooking skills she learned from Li Jingjing. She was smart to begin with, so she was more reliable in learning anything. Huilin lived with Abbess Yun Miao on a mountain all year round. Although she was a vegetarian and chanted Buddhist scriptures, she still knew some basic cooking skills. At the very least, it wasn't a problem for her to do some menial work. Thus, the two women helped Mother Wang in the kitchen happily. Hearing the sound of Yang Cheng's return, Huilin was the first to run out. She treated Yang Cheng as her brother-in-law. Due to her good upbringing, she knew to greet Yang Cheng when she went out. "Brother Yang, you're back." Just as she said that with a smile, Huilin saw a petite girl standing beside Yang Cheng. She was looking around nervously. When she saw Huilin, she immediately lowered her head to greet her. Her voice was so soft that she couldn't hear it. Yang Cheng helped Jinxiu forward and introduced her. "This is a younger sister I know. Your sister knows her too. Her name is Su Jinxiu. Since she's alone, I brought her home to celebrate the holidays with us." Huilin was smart and immediately smiled kindly at Jinxiu. However, she was a stranger and didn't know what to say. In the kitchen, Lin Ruoxi didn't want to talk to Yang Cheng. However, when she heard Yang Cheng mention Jinxiu's name, she immediately wiped her wet hands and walked out of the kitchen in a pink apron. Without looking at Yang Cheng, she walked to Jinxiu and held Jinxiu's hand. She smiled and asked, "Did you go back to see the dean today?" Jinxiu saw Lin Ruoxi and relaxed slightly. She smiled and nodded. "Yes, Brother Yang brought me to buy a lot of gifts for the children and the dean. We had lunch there." "That's good. The dean must be very happy. It's your first time coming to my house. Sit down and watch TV. Don't stand on ceremony. You can eat later." Lin Ruoxi didn't care about Yang Cheng at all. She was clearly in a cold war with him. Yang Cheng smiled bitterly in his heart. He had no choice. Since he had chosen this path, he was prepared to accept this kind of treatment. Huilin saw the cold estrangement between the two. She couldn't bear to see it, but she didn't say anything. Lin Ruoxi pulled Huilin back to the kitchen. Yang Cheng pulled Jinxiu to sit on the sofa. He took out some candies and beef jerky that Mother Wang always prepared at home. This made Jinxiu feel uneasy again. For a girl whose monthly income was only enough to pay for rent, utilities, and 3 simple meals, snacks were very extravagant. It wasn't that Yang Cheng didn't know that Jinxiu lived a hard life and didn't care about her. However, Jinxiu's self-esteem obviously wouldn't accept Yang Cheng buying her good food and clothes for no reason. It was already a great decision for her to accept a loan from Yang Cheng to retake the college entrance examination. In less than half an hour, the hot dishes were carried out from the kitchen. Jinxiu sensibly walked into the kitchen and helped carry the dishes. Lin Ruoxi saw Jinxiu holding the steamed plate with her small hands and said anxiously, "Jinxiu, don't carry that. It's too hot and it will hurt your hands." Jinxiu didn't feel anything. She smiled and said, "It's okay, Sister Ruoxi. It's not hot." Lin Ruoxi was also surprised that Jinxiu didn't feel hot at all. She didn't even dare to touch the plate. This child, her hands are full of calluses. She must have done a lot of hard work. Mother Wang had sharp eyes and saw that there were many yellowish bulges on Jinxiu's hands. "It's so distressing." Lin Ruoxi had talked to Mother Wang about Jinxiu before. Mother Wang didn't feel that Jinxiu was a stranger. Jinxiu smiled indifferently. She didn't dare to speak in such a luxurious villa. Soon, the 5 of them sat down. Yang Cheng sat alone at the head of the table. On one side were Mother Wang and Huilin, and on the other side were Lin Ruoxi and Jinxiu. Facing the 4 women at the table, Yang Cheng felt like he was in a female dormitory. It suddenly occurred to him that if one day in the future, all the women around him could get together to eat together, in a row on the left and a row on the right. How spectacular would that be? However, it was just a thought. Although Yang Cheng was a bit overbearing and possessive of the women he liked, he didn't think of himself as an ancient emperor. He didn't think that these women would be concubines in the palace. Therefore, he didn't think that these women who treated him well would be friendly to his other women. They were all beauties and had their own pride. They all wanted to be loved completely. They were all the same. How could they tolerate each other just because they wanted to? On the surface, it was good enough that they didn't fight each other in front of him. If he really wanted to build a harmonious relationship, he still had a long way to go. However, at this time, Lin Ruoshi was probably not by his side anymore. Halfway through the meal, the four women chatted happily. Even the Shai Jinxiu gradually relaxed and became more talkative. However, at this moment, the doorbell rang. Mother Wang stood up and walked to the display at the door. She looked at the person outside and was stunned. She said to everyone, "It's the eldest daughter of the Kai family." Then, she opened the door. The eldest daughter of the Kai family was naturally Kai Ning. Yang Cheng was a little surprised. He knew that Choi Yun was Lin Ruoshi's best friend. Kai Ning shouldn't be familiar with Lin Ruoshi, so she was most likely here to look for him. However, what matter would require her to look for him on Christmas night? Kai Ning was wearing a black trench coat. Because she practiced internal energy, the cold of winter didn't affect her. Her tall and graceful figure was still very eye-catching in the trench coat. She had a cold and elegant face similar to Choi Yun. At this moment, it was as if frost had just fallen, and it was cold. Walking into the house, Kai Ning didn't look at anyone else. She just stared at Yang Cheng with a piercing gaze, as if there was some deep hatred between them. Yang Cheng was puzzled. Lin Ruoshi and the others were also surprised. They didn't dare to greet Kai Ning. "What did you do to my sister?" Kai Ning asked a question that stunned Yang Cheng. Lin Ruoshi and Mother Wang both had strange expressions on their faces. Hui Lin knew that Kai Ning was Flower Rain, but she didn't know who her sister was. Jinxiu was completely confused. "What did I do?" Yang Cheng shook his head. "I had lunch with her yesterday. We talked for a while, but I didn't do anything to her." Kai Ning was extremely agitated. She asked aggressively, "What did you say to her?" Yang Cheng hesitated for a while. He walked in front of Kai Ning and used a volume that only Kai Ning could hear to briefly explain what happened yesterday. It was more or less about rejecting Choi Yun's favor. Kai Ning widened her watery eyes and stared fiercely at Yang Cheng. "How could you treat her like this? Do you know how hard she has been suffering because of this?" "I have no other choice. This kind of thing can't be forced. You don't want her to go the wrong way, right?" Yang Cheng said helplessly. You don't understand what I'm talking about." Kai Ning's eyes were slightly overflowing with tears. "Do you know that you are cruel?" Yang Cheng was silent. He was cruel, but was accepting Choi Yun not cruel? Kai Ning took a deep breath and said coldly, "Yang Chun, if anything happens to my sister, even if I'm no match for you, I'll still come after you. I won't let you off easy." "What happened to her?" This was the question that Yang Cheng wanted to know. Kai Ning glanced at him. "You don't need to know. You don't deserve to know." After saying that, Kai Ning turned around and left. Yang Cheng's face was a little heavy. Could it be that after he rejected that woman, she did something stupid? Thinking about how Choi Yun had cried stubbornly at noon yesterday, Yang Cheng suddenly realized that he was actually worried about her safety. At this moment, Lin Ruoshi walked up. She was expressionless, but it was obvious that she was suppressing her anger. She asked Yang Cheng, "What happened to Yonyan? What did you do to her?" Yang Cheng sighed. "I don't know. I also want to know what happened to her." Lin Ruoshi looked at Yang Cheng distrustfully. She walked to the phone and called Choi Yun's phone. The caller's phone had been turned off. Lin Ruoshi's face became more and more ugly. She looked at Yang Cheng with eyes that were originally cold, but there was also a trace of hatred. Mother Wang saw that the warm family dinner had become so serious, especially between Yang Cheng and Lin Ruoshi. Anyone could feel the awkwardness between them, and her eyes were filled with worry. Chapter 3:15. In the end, Christmas Eve ended on a sour note. There was no dining atmosphere. Whether it was Hui Lin or Jinxiu, they ate hastily and wasted most of the food. Yang Cheng sent Jinxiu back to her rented place. Jinxiu seemed to want to say something, but in the end, she only said, "Goodbye, Brother Yang." Then, she walked back to her house. When Yang Chung returned to the villa, the three women were already asleep. In his room, after taking a hot shower, he laid on the big bed. Yang Chung felt a heavy pressure on his chest. There were too many complicated thoughts in his mind, and he couldn't fall asleep at all. Because it was the end of the year, Yulei International had a lot of things to do. In addition, a few days later, it would be a rotating holiday. Almost all the employees in the head office would be away for half a month to a month. So many things had to be done as soon as possible. As a result, in the next few days, Lin Ruoshi didn't have much time to meet with Yang Chung. The two of them didn't even have to meet with each other. In the blink of an eye, a week had passed. It was time for the holiday. Lin Ruoshi and Mo Chinny brought the people from the Ministry of Finance to Hainan for a holiday, while Yang Chung followed a group of girls from the Public Relations Department to Japan. Before leaving, Yang Chung specially asked Xiang Wei and the Sea Eagles to pay attention to the situation in Huaxia. At the very least, he couldn't let anything happen to Mother Wang and Hui Lin. Although Hui Lin was good at fighting, it was hard to guarantee that no enemies would take advantage of Yang Cheng's absence. There were still no leads on Choi Yen's matter. Yang Chung asked the bald pirate McDon, who was the best at intelligence investigation and had eyes all over the world, to conduct a search, but there was no news in a short period of time. Under such circumstances, the biggest possibility was that Choi Yan had entered some hidden area, and it was a place that Makedon's eyes couldn't reach. However, while he was searching for Choi Yan, An Xin, who had been keeping an eye on him, appeared in a place that Yang Chung felt was extremely fated. An Xin had always been on international flights, flying all over the world. She did not expect that on the day Yang Chung went to Japan, she would also be a flight attendant on that flight. This news made Yang Cheng's mood, which had been slightly gloomy because of Choi Yun, slightly better. Although strictly speaking, he had only met an Exine twice. This rebellious yet adorable seductive vixen had left a deep impression on Yang Chun after their two passionate encounters. Such a woman may not always stay by your side obediently. She yearns for independence and freedom, and even treats marriage as a real piece of waste paper. But when she decides to put you in her heart, she will not let go even if you beat her to death. She will always cling to you and not let go. Even if she is not by your side, she will always be thinking about you in her heart. Yang Chung liked the time he spent with An Xin. It was relaxing, warm, and stable. Of course, he could also enjoy the kind of happiness between a man and a woman. Since there was already a beginning, Yang Chung would certainly not let go of the ending that should belong to him. Back then, An Xin hoped to use the word fate to determine her and Yang Cheng's fate. Yang Chung felt that when he met her on the plane, this somewhat crazy woman would definitely open her cherry mouth wide and not be able to say a word. It was a sunny morning when all the snow in Zhonghai had melted. After Yang Chung drove to the parking lot of Yulei International, he looked for the address and arrived at the place where the travel bus was parked. The dozen or so women from Yulei's public relations department who had decided to travel were already chattering in the bus and touching up their makeup. Their faces were beaming with happiness, and there was no sign of the tiredness of the morning. In fact, there were far more than a dozen people in the public relations department. It was just that some of the female public relations staff chose other travel routes, and some chose to stay at home with their families until the spring festival. Therefore, the number of people going to Japan was limited to a dozen or so. As the new head, Lu Mingyu was naturally there. Zhao Hongyan and Zhang Kai were also good sisters, so they decided to go with Lu Mingyu to have fun. Speaking of the entire team of men, Yang Cheng was really the only one. However, because of Yang Cheng's amazing foreign languages, of course, it included Japanese. Yang Cheng also acted as a translator on this trip. After all, there were many people who knew English, but there weren't many people who knew Japanese. The Japanese were famous for hating English. The use of English in Japan was even less important than in Huaxia. Lu Mingyu was wearing a white casual sportswear and a pair of light-colored sunglasses. Her black hair was naturally loose, and her skin was especially fair and tender. When she saw Yang Cheng get on the bus, She picked up a magazine and immediately pretended not to see anything. Yangqing knew that she was shy. After all, they had a relationship that couldn't be seen in public. Therefore, on this trip, Lu Mingyu obviously didn't want others to find out that she was close to Yangqing. However, Yangqing didn't care about this. He minded his own business and sat next to Lu Mingyu. One of his hands even grabbed Lu Mingyu's elastic thigh when no one was looking. "Don't be like this. It's not good if others see us," Lu Mingyu said anxiously. Although she was purposely avoiding Yangqing, she was honestly happy that Yangqing was sitting next to her. Women were always so contradictory. Even she herself didn't realize it. Yangqing smiled and said, "The more you act like this, the more people will think that there's something wrong with us. Naturally, it'll be easier. Didn't you say in a cool manner that after we're done, you'll still be you and I'll still be me? Why don't I sound cool now?" Lu Mingyu took off her sunglasses and rolled her eyes at Yangqing. "You're the only one who knows how to talk. Forget it. I'm already a mistress. You can touch me if you want. If others see through it, I'll just ruin my reputation with you. How about it? I have the professional ethics of a mistress, right?" Yangqing smiled, but he didn't hesitate to grab her again. Finally, Lu Mingyu didn't have the slightest bit of temper. More than an hour later, the group boarded the plane at Zhonghai International Airport. Everyone bought economy class, which made many female public servants complain. After all, it was still very tiring to sit in economy class after sitting for more than 4 hours. Yangqing, on the other hand, was thinking whether an XIN would only serve business class. If that was the case, it wouldn't be as convenient to communicate with her as it was when he went to Hong Kong previously, let alone doing something that would make his blood boil. As the long line slowly walked into the Boeing 747, Yangqing sat down according to his seat. He didn't see Anxin's figure in the plane. Fortunately, he was sitting on the aisle. Yangqing planned to wait for the plane to take off before looking for her. After another full half an hour, the international flight finally took off. After the plane stabilized, the Japanese and Huaxia flight attendants also took their positions and served drinks to the passengers in each cabin. Yangqing saw that it was about time, so he unbuckled his seat belt and walked to business class. When he came to business class, he walked around and even looked at the flight attendant service area. Yangqing was stunned to find Anxin's figure. A kind Japanese flight attendant was the purser of this plane. Seeing that Yangqing seemed to be looking for something, she stepped forward and asked in broken Chinese, "Sir, do you need anything?" Yangqing felt that he might as well ask someone else. He directly asked in fluent Japanese, "Miss, is there a flight attendant named Anxin on this flight?" The purser was slightly surprised by Yangqing's native Japanese. She smiled and said in Japanese, "Anxin? She was originally on this flight, but last night she had something to do, so she changed her flight in the early hours of the morning and flew to Tokyo early." "Early? Why?" Yangqing frowned. No wonder he couldn't find that crazy girl. The purser shook her head. "I'm not sure either. It was an order from the headquarters. Anxin seemed to be unwilling, but in the end, it was changed." "Oh, right. It seems like Anxin's father also left on that flight." Yangqing immediately felt that something was wrong. And Zaihuan brought Anxin to Japan? One had to know that Anxin became a flight attendant in order to escape her father. Now that she was being escorted by Zaihuan, nothing good would come out of it. However, the plane had already taken off. Yangqing couldn't contact Maekdan to help him find Anxin's latest whereabouts. He could only wait patiently until he arrived in Japan. However, Yangqing wasn't too worried. After all, Zaihuan wouldn't harm Anxin. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone through so much trouble to escort his daughter to Japan. Chapter 316. After taking a nap on the plane for more than 4 hours, the group of people finally landed at Narita Airport in Tokyo. After going through the customs procedures, Yangqing led the group of female colleagues to the exit of the airport. Since it was a group tour, they naturally had a tour guide and driver. From afar, they saw a young lady with a good figure, wearing a pink sweater and carrying a small bag. She was holding a banner with the words, "Ulay International," written on it. After Yangqing and the others went up to introduce themselves, The Japanese tour guide named Kawanako used passable Mandarin to say a bunch of welcoming words to everyone. Following that, she led everyone to the car and headed to the hotel where they were staying to rest. After getting on a minibus, Kawanako began to talk about the rough route of the tour, as well as the general situation of Tokyo. In fact, even if she didn't talk about it, this international financial center that had one of the highest consumption standards in the world, the second largest city in the world, was enough to open the eyes of the group of female public relations staff. The endless flow of people and vehicles, as well as the densely packed skyscrapers, gave off the vibe of a fashionable metropolis. The total length of the tour this time was about 10 days. They would go from Tokyo to Nagoya, Kyoto, and Osaka. Finally, they would take a plane back to Shanghai. The group of women wasn't most concerned about the places to play, but they immediately asked Kawanako about the places where they could buy cheap branded bags and cheap branded cosmetics. Even Lu Mingyu, who seemed mature and steady, had a look of anticipation on her face. Her eyes were gleaming with a wild and aggressive gaze, making Yang Cheng rather helpless. It seemed that shopping was the biggest deciding factor for these women to come to Japan. Do you women always want to buy a nice bag whenever you see one? Why can't you control yourself? Yang Cheng asked Lu Mingyu. Lu Mingyu blushed, but she still nodded. Yeah, I've had the experience of overdrawing my credit card in the past, and I almost couldn't pay it off. Yang Cheng asked in bewilderment. Don't these bags only come out 4 seasons a year? Even superstars and entrepreneurs might not be able to buy all of them, let alone you guys who are getting paid. This is a bottomless pit. Although we can't buy all of them, we can try our best. Lu Mingyu answered. Yang Cheng rolled his eyes, completely convinced. Kawanako, we're foreigners. Will we be cheated if we buy branded goods? What if it's fake? Zhang Kai asked excitedly with stars in her eyes. Kawanako smiled humbly and said, Don't worry, as long as it's a legitimate trading company, it won't be fake. In Japan, if someone discovers that someone is selling fake goods, they will report it immediately and the punishment will be very severe. The group of women cheered again and immediately became intimate with tour guide Kawanako as though they were sisters. They arrived at the 4-star hotel that they had booked. Although it didn't look particularly luxurious and the area wasn't big, it was clean and tidy, giving off a warm feeling. As the only man in the team, Yang Cheng realized at this moment that he was indeed a little different. He didn't think much before he came, but at this moment, everyone was sharing a room in pairs while he had his own small room. He couldn't help but feel lonely and was mocked by his female colleagues. When they arrived at the guest room on the 27th floor, Yang Cheng had just entered his room and put down his simple luggage. Just as he was about to turn on his laptop and contact Make-Don, other than confirming Anshin's location and situation, he also needed to find out if there were any movements from the Yamada sect, which was headquartered in Japan. After all, he had come to their nest this time, so he had to take precautions. However, before he turned on his laptop, he heard someone knocking on the door. Yang Cheng thought to himself, could it be that Lu Mingyu couldn't help but want to get intimate with me so soon? He felt that it was possible and secretly felt proud for a while before walking to the door and opening it. Sure enough, Lu Mingyu was standing outside the door, but in addition to her, Zhang Kai, Zhao Hongyan, and a few other female public relations took up 5 or 6 people. Seeing a group of women looking at him delicately, Yang Cheng felt as helpless as a male antelope being stared at by a group of lionesses. What's wrong? What's the matter? Lu Mingyu said, we want to go to Akihabara to buy a camera or something. I heard that the things there are cheap and good. A few of us didn't bring a camera here, so we want to go buy it now. This way, it'll be convenient for us to go to the scenic spots tomorrow as a souvenir. Akihabara was a famous electronic business district in Tokyo, so Yang Cheng could understand it. However, this group of women had just arrived and they already planned to go shopping. It was really an eye-opener for Yang Cheng. When he was dozing off in the company, he didn't see them so energetic. Can't you just go find a tour guide? Don't tell me you want me to follow you as an interpreter? Yang Cheng said gloomily. You can't trust a tour guide. They take a lot of commission. Zhao Hongyan said immediately. Yang Cheng couldn't help but laugh. Weren't you guys very intimate with that Kawanako just now? Have you forgotten what our profession is? We are all public relations. Building a good relationship with a person and how you really feel about that person are two different things. You really don't have a good eye. That Kawanako looks like a stingy person, so she definitely knows how to accumulate money. We won't fall for her trick. Zhang Kai, who was still chatting with Kawanako just now, said. Yang Cheng felt a little dizzy. He couldn't handle these women. He had no choice. He couldn't possibly say that he was tired of being a man with so many beautiful faces, so he could only follow them as an interpreter and follower. After calling for 2 old Toyota taxis at the hotel, 6 to 7 of them headed to Akihabara. In fact, they could have taken the railway, but none of them were familiar with Tokyo, so calling a taxi was more convenient. When they arrived at the electronic business district of Akihabara, the women were dazzled by the dazzling array of electronic products. After entering the shops, all kinds of exquisitely designed and colorful cameras, as well as the latest mobile phones, became their targets. The Japanese's service attitude was famous all over the world. As long as they passed by or entered a shop, the waiters would bow and welcome them. And no matter if they bought it or not, they would smile and thank you for your patronage when they left the shop. With such a service attitude, other than being extremely polite, it also made many customers feel that if they didn't buy anything, wouldn't they be letting down the other party's 90-degree bow? Hence, after visiting a few shops, the women bought what they wanted. Yang Cheng looked at the few public relations ladies playing with the newly bought electronic products and asked helplessly, "Are you satisfied? If there's nothing else, let's go back." The women looked at each other and shook their heads in unison. "I haven't walked enough yet. Let's look around more. It's not dinner time yet anyway," Zhao Hongyan said. Yang Cheng was helpless, but he really couldn't stand following a group of people, so he found an empty chair and sat on the side of the aisle of the shopping mall and said to the women, "You guys go shopping. I'll wait for you here. When you're done, come find me here. Anyway, the entrance of a shopping mall is here." With regards to Yang Cheng's laziness, the women fought to look down on him. They made a few faces and didn't force him, so they went their own ways. In Japan, communication was a very magical and stingy situation. Mobile phones couldn't be used, and if they wanted to make a call, they had to buy a Japanese phone card. Thus, Yang Cheng let them walk together, in case they couldn't find each other. After the women left, Yang Cheng yawned and prepared to take a nap, waiting for them to finish shopping. But at this moment, from the corner of Yang Cheng's eyes, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a beautiful figure. It was a woman wearing a simple and elegant water blue dress. It was a cotton dress without any embellishments, fresh and natural, revealing a pair of white and slender arms and a pair of white and tender legs. She was wearing flat white cloth shoes, and even in winter, she was still dressed in a cool summer outfit. The woman's black hair hung down to her buttocks. She was tall and slim, and her posture was as graceful as a willow. In the eyes of ordinary people, this woman had an elegant figure. At most, her clothes were a little out of place. Her back could be considered beautiful, but there was nothing special about her. However, in Yang Cheng's eyes, that long hair that naturally hung down to her buttocks, that cool and elegant dress, that strange white cloth shoes, and the faint sadness that filled her beautiful figure. In an instant, Yang Cheng's brain almost stopped working. His entire body felt as if it had been electrocuted, and his entire body froze on the spot. He even forgot to breathe. Yang Cheng's ears could no longer hear any noise from the outside world. Yang Cheng's eyelids didn't even blink, and he could only hear his own heart beating crazily. It was like a thunderclap in the bottom of his heart. "It's her. It's her. How could it be her?" Yang Cheng suddenly stood up, completely forgetting that he was in a crowded shopping mall. His movement speed was so fast that it made a large number of customers' eyes blur, and they doubted if they had seen wrongly as they looked at Yang Cheng in a daze. In an instant, Yang Cheng moved from his original position to a corner that was more than 20 meters away. That figure had disappeared from this corner. However, when Yang Cheng walked to this corner, there was no trace of her. Yang Cheng gulped, and his eyes widened. He looked around, but he couldn't find the figure of the woman just now. Is it an illusion? I haven't been like this for a long time. Why is it happening again? Yangchen closed his eyes in pain and sighed bitterly. He laughed at himself sadly. That's right. How could I still be in this world? Slowly walking back to his original seat, Yangcheng was like a deflated ball, soft and powerless. He waited silently with his eyes without any spirit. As for those customers who felt that Yangcheng's speed seemed to be very fast, seeing Yangcheng's disappointed look, they didn't dare to come up and talk to him. Most of them suspected that they had seen wrongly. After all, that kind of speed didn't seem to be what a human should have. In the huge shopping mall, Yangcheng closed his eyes and sat alone on the chair. He didn't move at all, like a decaying statue that was hidden in the darkness. Chapter 317. The untraversed, moss-covered tundra and karst landforms had forged a huge underground world with uncanny craftsmanship. There were only a few kerosene lamps, spreading the warmth in the large space. On the ceiling and walls of the cave, the metals and ores reflected a faint glow of various colors. Damp, cold, silent, and oppressive. In this untraversed underground space that seemed to be another world, fine steel pillars that were as thick as an arm connected the ground and the ceiling, firmly encircling a square iron prison that was hundreds of square meters. On the only door of the iron prison, a heavy and rusty huge lock was firmly fastened. This was a place that was isolated from the rest of the world. It was a place that did not see sunlight all year round, and one could not even breathe in fresh air. The cold underground humidity could continuously corrode and devour anyone's soul. But in the iron prison, dozens of thin and small figures were curled up in various parts of the iron prison. Some were lying down, some were hugging their legs as they sat, and some were pouncing on the iron prison steel pillars. This was a group of boys and girls who looked to be around 10 years old. Their thin and weak bodies were all wearing thin gray short-sleeved shirts and shorts. Without food, the only thing that allowed them to survive was the underground water that occasionally dripped from the stalactites on the cave ceiling. After many days of hunger and cold, most of the children were already on the verge of collapsing. What was even more terrifying was the underground world's empty, silent, yet mysterious atmosphere. Even an adult would feel pressured and uneasy in this isolated space, and even more so in the cold iron prison. Despair was constantly growing. 2 days ago, there were still children who could not bear the fear in their hearts and cried. But now, the children who cried and wailed had already exhausted most of their energy. Among the dozens of children, most of the ones lying on the ground were already cold corpses of children. But because the underground temperature was extremely low, the corpses' decay was exceptionally slow, and they were only in a rigid state. Being underground without any sun, moon, or stars, it was impossible to know how many days had passed. Gradually, the remaining dozen or so children became the last chance of survival. In the huge iron prison, no one spoke. Everyone's breathing became extremely quiet because they knew that if they wanted to live, they could not waste any energy. At this time, a slightly larger child, after enduring an unimaginable hunger, finally moved. Using the most energy-conserving posture, he slowly moved to the body of the child closest to him. In the darkness, the boy bent down and opened his mouth. Slowly and firmly, he bit down on the neck of the child's corpse, which was about the same size as him. Not long after, the unique sound of teeth tearing and chewing on raw meat rang out in the silent prison. This was a sound that ordinary people would never hear in their entire lives. In the ears of the remaining dozen or so children, it seemed so ordinary and unsurprising. As the first child searched for food, 3 more children began to search for corpses and gnaw on them. The children's teeth were much sharper than he had imagined. When they swallowed the cold, raw meat, they did not make a sound. The only thing that could be heard was their heavy breathing. After eating a few mouthfuls of meat, the child gradually regained his strength, and the sound of his chewing became louder. In a corner of the cell, another boy couldn't help but move his limbs and crawl to the 2 corpses closest to him. 2 corpses, a girl and a boy, were lying on the ground. They had not moved for more than a day. The girl's body was especially thin, but at a time like this, there was no difference between a boy and a girl. There was only food. The boy did not choose much. He just swallowed his already bitter saliva, opened his mouth, and pretended to bite down on the girl's corpse suddenly. The boy felt that something was wrong. However, the moment he felt that something was wrong, it was already too late. The girl's corpse, which was originally thought to be dead, suddenly turned around and angrily slapped the boy's temple with her bony palm. The girl had rather long fingernails on her fingers. At this moment, she used all the strength in her body to claw, and her fingernails sank into the boy's head. The original diner became the prey of death in the blink of an eye. The girl turned around and pounced on the boy's corpse that had just died. Like a crazy, hungry lioness, she began to tear at the boy's flesh. A corpse that had just died still had body temperature after all, and its blood was also warm. Such food could obviously give the predator a greater chance of survival. Less than 10 seconds after the girl started eating her first meal in many days, the boy's corpse that was closest to the girl also slowly sat up. The boy silently approached the corpse that the girl had just stabbed to death. Without any communication with the girl, he opened his mouth and bit down on the spot that the girl had not bitten before. He did not look where it was either. The girl did not seem surprised. Obviously, she knew that the boy was also faking his death. He was waiting for the warm prey to come to him, so he bit down on it fiercely and drank the hot blood. After all, it was raw meat that was extremely difficult to chew. Even though most of it was swallowed, the boy and the girl still ate for almost an hour before they stopped with their faces covered in blood. The corpse that had been warm just a moment ago was now emitting waves of stench. However, because there were corpses everywhere in the iron prison that had been bitten, the stench had long since filled the air. The two of them returned to the corner of the prison. In the darkness, the two of them could only vaguely see each other's blurry faces. They both had disheveled hair, but their eyes exuded the vigilance of wild beasts, ready to pounce. The two children knew that the other was the best at surviving in this kind of survival training. As long as the other party was given the slightest opening, the other party's next prey would be themselves. In a situation where there was no need to fight with such an opponent, it was obviously unwise. Therefore, being on guard was the best choice. As they sat down, their gazes never left each other's face. After an unknown amount of time, when a beam of light shone through the iron prison's door and illuminated the two of them slowly turned their heads towards the dazzling light. A pale and indifferent voice recorded the training results in Russian. 57 test subjects. 2 survived. Number 13, number 17. In the dense primitive rainforest, a colorful poisonous snake coiled around a towering sequoia tree. On the side of the sequoia tree, there was a youth wearing a tight camouflage short-sleeved shirt and canvas camouflage pants. His muddy face made him look young, and he looked to be around 13 or 14 years old. He had a strong and healthy body, and he was sitting on a pile of soft fallen leaves with his back against the sequoia tree. In his hand was a cold, short military knife with a blood groove. The military knife was stained with blood that had yet to dry. The sound of cicadas rang out incessantly in the rainforest. The youth seemed to be asleep, with his eyes closed and his head tilted. At this moment, a figure wearing the same camouflage short-sleeved shirt slowly walked out from a pile of banana leaves. He held a short knife in his hand and approached the youth. When he was a foot away from the youth suddenly pointed the military knife in his hand at the approaching figure. The youth's eyes had already opened. It was a pair of cold and numb eyes, but there seemed to be surging lava hidden in the emptiness. "It's you," the youth said faintly in English, but he recognized the figure in front of him. The one who walked in front of him was a girl who was also 13 or 14 years old. The girl's hair was short to her ears, and her skin was snow white. Because she had been exposed to the sun for a long time, it was obvious that her face was not ordinary. Given time, she would definitely be a beauty that could turn all living things upside down. However, that ice-cold expression that was like the winter in the 12th month, and the same numb and tenacity in her eyes that were similar to the youth's, made it difficult for people to get close to her. "I want to cooperate with you." The girl didn't beat around the bush and said straightforwardly. "Why?" the youth asked. "You are the strongest of everyone. I want to live, and the success rate of cooperating with you is the highest." The girl said concisely. The youth sneered. "You should know that the enemies are not only poisonous snakes and fierce beasts, but also people in the rainforest. Are you afraid of me?" The girl sneered in disdain. Don't try to provoke me childishly. Show me what you have. The youth sneered. The girl suddenly revealed a charming smile that did not match her age. A pair of watery eyes exuded a strong female charm. There are already 2 stupid men who thought they could eat me, but I killed them instead. You are stronger than them, but there is one thing that you are the same as them. The girl paused, and with an incomparably seductive and hoarse voice, she said, You are also a man. You are the same as them. You want women, you want to vent. The youth's eyes had a slightly strange look. After a moment of silence, he said, You are not the only woman here. That's right. The girl's mouth revealed a trace of pride, but you know very well that I am the best looking of them. After the girl finished speaking, she began to elegantly take off her tight short sleeves. Gradually, from her slender and tight waist, her white and alluring skin was revealed. The girl had obviously received professional training. Every movement was extremely seductive. It was hard for anyone to imagine that this was done by a 13 or 14-year-old girl. When the girl's immature body was completely presented in front of the youth's eyes were no longer calm, and a flame was ignited. I want to live, and you also have to live. As the weaker one, I will use my body in exchange for your help. The girl did not show off any more women's weapons. She stood in front of the youth, completely naked, and solemnly asked, 13, do you dare to take me? How can I believe you? The youth was obviously suppressing something. He already understood the relationship between men and women. After suppressing the madness for a long time, he indeed needed a channel to vent, to prevent himself from collapsing because of the huge load on his brain. However, he was also very clear that the owner of the body in front of him was a beautiful poisonous scorpion. The girl bit her thin lips. Her eyes were so resolute and cold, and she said in a clear voice, I don't have any evidence, but I can tell you, this is my first time. The youth did not ask any more questions. Like a leopard, he pounced on the girl, who had already given up all strength, and threw her to the ground. After a violent storm, the pile of dead leaves returned to peace. What is your name? Number 17. Your original name? Don't know. Why do you want to live so stubbornly? Death is actually also a release. I want to go back home. I want to see my parents. Why? I want to ask them my name. Chapter 318. He had too many dreams that he hadn't had for a long time. When Yangcheng woke up in the morning, he wanted to sleep a little longer. However, he was on a trip after all, and he had to bring his female colleagues to the tourist spot in the morning. Hence, he could only wash up slowly and go downstairs for breakfast. Sitting beside Lu Mingyu and the rest listlessly, Yangcheng didn't have any appetite as he watched the women eating Japanese grilled eels early in the morning. After drinking 2 bowls of miso soup, Yangcheng didn't eat much else. What's wrong with you? You're usually the biggest eater. Why are you only drinking soup today? Zhao Hongyan couldn't help but ask curiously. Yangcheng naturally wouldn't tell them the truth. He rubbed his stomach that wasn't hungry at all. Going to the mall with you guys yesterday was a huge blow to me. I don't have a good appetite. What has this got to do with going to the mall? Don't try to find an excuse to avoid it. We still have to go tonight, Zhang Kai said while stuffing sausages into her mouth. Yangcheng rolled his eyes. If he knew this would happen, he wouldn't have provoked them. The main itinerary in the morning was Sensoji in Tokyo. This temple was the oldest temple in Japan, with a history of close to 700 years. Every year, a large number of tourists and residents would go there to pray for blessings. Japanese temples didn't necessarily worship a particular deity. It could be an object or a plant. Anything that they thought was spiritual, they might build a temple for it. Therefore, temples in Japan were usually very strange. However, Yangcheng wasn't interested in these. What made him more excited was the news about Anshin that he asked Maekdan to investigate last night. Maekdan sent a report through the internet. It was about Anshin's situation. Yangcheng found it funny after taking a quick look at it. No wonder Zaihuan brought Anshin to Japan. It was the Liu family's doing. From Maekdan's investigation, he found out that the Liu family didn't seem to have the patience to wait for Anshin to return home. Under Liu Kongbai's instigation, Liu Yin directly chose to hold a grand wedding in Ataru, Hokkaido, Japan. At that time, Celebrities from all over the world would come to Hokkaido to attend the wedding between the Liu family and the Yin family. Regardless of whether Anshin was willing or not, she was caught by Zaihuan and forced to marry Liu Yin. Yang Cheng looked at the time. There was still one more week. It seemed like he wouldn't be able to play with this group of female colleagues to the end. Although it wasn't kind of him to quit halfway, if Anshin really became his bride, wouldn't he really let Liu Yin be proud of himself? He reckoned that Anshin would also be disheartened by life. With her crazy personality, it was hard to say if she would commit suicide. Yang Cheng sent an email back and asked McDon to send someone to keep an eye on Anshin. As for how to deal with the Liu family's elaborate wedding, Yang Cheng was not in a hurry. The higher they stand, the harder they fall. Let them be happy for a few days. After breakfast, Kawanako, the tour guide who was talked about by the female public relations staff to the point that she couldn't even be considered a human, led a group of women and set off with a smile. Walking into the Thunder Gate of Sensoji, there were all kinds of traditional Japanese handicraft shops and snack bars on both sides, attracting a large number of tourists. The group of women looked here and there, and very soon, they started playing on their own. Kawanako explained for a while and let everyone walk around freely. When it was time, they would gather by the car. Yang Cheng didn't expect that he would have to go shopping with women so early in the morning. How could he stand it? After visiting a few shops, he pretended to be hungry and bought a bunch of takoyaki. Then, he ran to a secluded staircase and started eating by himself. Lu Mingyu and the other women rolled their eyes at Yang Cheng. They were dissatisfied, but they couldn't do anything to this thick-skinned guy. Other men would chase after beautiful women like them, but this guy would run far away when he was asked to walk with them, as if he was fed poison. Yang Cheng leaned against a stone platform leisurely, munching on the traditional snacks that didn't taste that good while looking at the various tourists by the roadside. Many locals in Tokyo came to pray for blessings. After all, it was Chinese New Year. Many Japanese wore kimonos and wooden clogs, sincerely coming to the temple to ask for a fortune stick. After asking for a fortune stick, there was a Chinese poem written on the wall of Sensoji. Different poems had different meanings. After the Japanese read the Japanese translation, they would know if they would have good luck in the coming year. If their luck was bad, they would leave the fortune stick in the temple and pray for bad luck to leave. The female public relations staff who were busy shopping didn't know or care about these things. Although Yang Cheng often came to Japan in the early years and knew a lot, he was too lazy to say anything. After all, it would be weird and it wouldn't be easy to explain if someone asked. After eating a pile of bought food, Yang Cheng was about to throw the paper bag into the trash can next to him, but at this moment, in the crowded area in front of him, a figure flashed past from the corner of his eyes. It was a group of people who were about to leave the temple after praying for blessings. In the crowded crowd, such a figure was actually not easy to notice. However, for Yang Cheng, even if this figure appeared at the tip of the iceberg, it could instantly awaken a strong reaction. It was still the blue off-shoulder dress he saw last night, and the long black hair hanging down to her hips. What was different from yesterday was that the long hair was casually tied with a pink ribbon, revealing a bit of Japanese style. But in the cold winter, such a cool outfit that made people feel cold. How could it be someone else? Yang Cheng couldn't care less about throwing away the trash in his hands. He quickly rushed into the crowd below. Because there were too many people, he squeezed and stumbled. When Yang Cheng ran to the place where the figure was, he lost contact with the figure again. Yang Cheng looked around. There were so many people, but he couldn't see the figure anymore. Throwing the trash in his hands onto the ground with all his might, Yang Cheng couldn't be bothered about the despising gazes from the people around him. He walked out of the temple with a gloomy face. If I saw it the first time, it might be an illusion, but why did I see it the second time? Yang Cheng suddenly felt like God was playing a huge joke on him, but this joke wasn't funny at all. His heart felt like it was overturned with a jar of mixed feelings. All sorts of sourness and bitterness made Yang Cheng want to shout at the sky, but he held it in. When Yang Cheng walked back to the tour bus, Kawanako wanted to greet Yang Cheng, but she immediately shut her mouth when she saw Yang Cheng's frighteningly awful face. When he sat back on the bus, The group of women hadn't returned yet. Yang Cheng closed his eyes, and the figure he saw just now appeared in his mind. His heart contracted, followed by a twitching pain. 17. 17. Could it really be you? Are you really still in this world? If it's you, why are you hiding from me? If you're hiding from me, why did you appear in front of me twice? When the group of women returned to the bus almost half an hour later, Yang Cheng had already returned to his normal state. He was leaning against the chair and dozing off. Such a situation made the tour guide Kawanako, who had returned to the bus, feel baffled. The afternoon's itinerary was decided at the last minute. As the group of women weren't interested in modern skyscrapers, they were only interested in shopping and beauty, so the plan to visit the Tokyo Tower at night was canceled. Instead, they headed to Kanagawa Prefecture, which was 1.5 hours away from Tokyo, to the famous Tangahara Onsen. Onsen hotels, tatami mats. When they talked about these, the women couldn't stop chatting in the bus. After chatting with them for a while, Lu Mingyu noticed that Yang Cheng didn't seem to be in a good mood. She asked worriedly, "Why do you look so listless? Are you sick?" Yang Cheng smiled in relief. "I'm fine. It's just that I can't get into your conversation, so I'm a little depressed." "Of course," Lu Mingyu said with a smile. "You're not a woman. You wouldn't understand what we're thinking." "Yeah, I really don't understand," Yang Cheng mumbled. After having lunch at a famous barbecue restaurant in Tokyo, they arrived at Tangahara Onsen in Kanagawa Prefecture after another 2 hours of driving. When they entered the slightly old onsen hotel with a wooden structure, they were surrounded by elderly waiters. However, all of them had makeup on, and they looked like young waiters, welcoming Yang Cheng and his group with a smile. Zhang Kai, who had a more active personality, pouted and complained, "The Japanese are too wicked, letting so many old people be waiters. Are all the young people dead? What should I do? Letting these old people serve me. I'm embarrassed to death." It's not that all the young people died, it's just that Japan has a serious aging population, and the young people don't have the energy to be waiters. You'll get used to it once you experience more. It's almost the same in Western developed countries, Yang Cheng explained. Zhang Kai nodded, not really understanding, but it's still awkward. Because it was more suitable to soak in the onsen at night, and they were tired from the long journey, they followed the waiters to their reserved rooms. When they arrived at the guest room department, a vending machine placed at the entrance of the corridor attracted everyone's attention. This was because the packaging of this machine was obviously decorated with adult colors. It was a strong man and a naked woman. "Hey, what's this?" Zhang Kai pulled on Yang Cheng's sleeve, blushing as she asked. The other female employees also wanted to know, but they were too embarrassed to ask, so they looked at Yang Cheng eagerly. Although Yang Cheng was thick-skinned, he really felt embarrassed when he encountered this kind of thing. So he explained, "You put in a 1,000 yen note, which is a 1,000 yen note, and it will give you a card. The card's number can be used for the TV program in your room. After entering it, you will be able to watch that channel." What was that channel? Needless to say, the female employees also understood. Japan's industry in that area was extremely developed, so adult TV stations were naturally very common. 1,000 yen to watch for 24 hours. This kind of consumption was not expensive. So it's that kind of thing. I was wondering what it was. "I don't want to watch anymore. Let's go." Zhang Kai immediately ran away, blushing like a tomato. The other women also had a serious look on their faces, but they acted as if nothing happened. Yang Cheng touched his nose and coincidentally saw Lu Mingyu, who was beside him, casting a shy look at him. Suddenly, a ball of fire surged from below. "I'll look for you tonight," Yang Cheng whispered in Lu Mingyu's ear. Seeing that no one was paying attention, Lu Mingyu glared at Yang Cheng. "I'm sleeping in the same room with Han Yin. Don't you dare mess around. Little you're too ruthless, at least once." Yang Cheng smiled bitterly. Lu Mingyu pursed her lips, somewhat moved, and quietly said, "Then when Han Yin is asleep, I'll look for you." Yang Cheng laughed, like a fox that had successfully stolen a fish. "Remember to wash yourself in the hot spring. I'll wait for you." Chapter 319. As night fell, the air in Japan was unusually fresh, and one could see the dazzling Milky Way in the sky. After eating a light Japanese dinner, Yangcheng didn't follow the women to the hot spring. Instead, he went back to his room and turned on his computer. He discussed with Maekdan and Solon about the Liu family's wedding in a week. The two unscrupulous old men came up with a bunch of dirty tricks to ruin the wedding. Yangcheng realized that he didn't need to participate in the planning, so he left it to the two of them. He only wanted Maekdan to protect Anshin and monitor her secretly. Sitting by the floor-to-ceiling window, Yangcheng looked out at the night sky and thought about the time he saw 17's back during the day. There were too many questions that Yangcheng couldn't figure out. Seeing the same figure twice in a row, Yangcheng felt that it wasn't a coincidence. However, if 17 saw him and followed him, then he should have noticed that someone was following him. It wasn't a matter of how good the tracking skill was, but an instinct that he had developed over the years. Yangcheng was confident that unless it was an opponent of the same level as him, there was no way he wouldn't feel that he was being followed. As for why 17 only followed him and didn't want to see him, Yangcheng wasn't too surprised. After all, he didn't have the face to see her, so it wasn't strange that she didn't want to see him. A few hours passed, and the wind chimes on the balcony jingled in the cold wind outside. Yangcheng's thoughts were interrupted. He looked at the time. It was almost midnight, but no one knocked on the door. Did Lu Mingyu forget to say that she was coming to his room? Or was she too shy to come? As Yangcheng was feeling depressed, the door finally knocked a few times. He rushed to the door and opened the traditional Japanese wooden door. As expected, Lu Mingyu was standing at the door. After taking a bath and changing, Lu Mingyu was wearing the kimono-like pajamas in the guest rooms of the resort. Her black hair was simply tied behind her head. The collar of this kind of beige pajamas was very loose. Even so, Yangcheng could see Lu Mingyu's turbulent breasts. Moreover, she didn't wear any other underwear. "Stop looking. Let me in." Lu Mingyu saw Yangcheng staring at her collar and said shyly. Yangcheng smiled as he pulled the woman into his arms and closed the door. Without waiting for Lu Mingyu to say anything, he flipped her over and pressed her down on the tatami covered with a soft quilt. The natural fragrance of the tatami and the fragrance of a woman filled his mouth and nose. Yangcheng enjoyed a few breaths and said with a smile, "Baby, if you didn't come, I would have gone to your room to look for you. You're so horny. Can't you bear it for a while?" Lu Mingyu charmingly rolled her eyes at him. "Of course I will bear it without a woman by my side, but you won't let me eat the meat in front of my mouth. Isn't that too cruel?" Yangcheng said. Lu Mingyu's expression suddenly turned serious and asked, "Yangcheng, in your eyes, am I a lover who sleeps with you and satisfies your desires?" Yangcheng was slightly stunned. "Why do you suddenly ask that?" Lu Mingyu took a deep breath and moved away from Yangcheng's body. She got up and tidied up her messy hair. She said, "I'm just a little curious. What position do I have in your heart?" That day, I went for a drink with department head Mo. Oh, I should call her Chinny now. We talked a lot. Most of it was about you. I know you're not an ordinary man. There must be something extraordinary about you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have saved me. Although I was surprised that a woman like Chinny was also your lover. She told me that you had another woman. I was struggling in my heart at that time. Although I never thought that one day you would have an open relationship with me, I really wanted to know what you thought of me. I'm not a little girl anymore. Since I gave my first time to you, I won't regret it. I want to hear the truth from you. Whether you say that I'm your lover or just a plaything, I won't blame you. Because today's path is my own choice. If it weren't for you, I would have been killed by Department Head Ma. But I have to at least give myself an explanation." Yangcheng thought for a while and stepped forward to hold Lu Mingyu's warm and soft hand. "Have you ever thought of leaving me?" Lu Mingyu was startled and immediately shook her head. "No, I resent you for being so affectionate, but I've never thought of leaving you. This makes me feel strange." "Me too. I've never thought of letting go of you. Sometimes, I also hate myself for always provoking women. When I see someone I like, it's hard to reject them. I'm especially possessive. I'd rather have you first before thinking about how to deal with the relationship between women. I feel that I can't change this in this lifetime. It's easy to change mountains and rivers, but it's hard to change a person's nature. That's why I've never thought that I'm good. I told you this not long after we met. That night when you said that you wanted to do that thing with me, I told you to think about it carefully. Yang Chung sighed and said with a smile, "You're not my plaything. I'm sincere to you, but I can tell you very clearly that you won't be the woman I love the most. Because we've only known each other for a short time, my understanding of you is limited, and you know even less about me. In this aspect, for example, Chinny and I have a much deeper relationship because we've been through a lot. But since we won't let go, we'll gradually get to know each other better in the future, and our relationship will also gradually deepen. Even if our relationship is a secret for the rest of our lives, as long as we're happy together, isn't that a life worthy of envy?" Lu Mingyu looked into Yang Cheng's eyes. Her slightly confused expression was reflected in them. She said sweetly, "I really don't know why I fell for you. You're really an ungentlemanly man. In front of your own woman, you said that you have a better relationship with another woman. Can't you even lie to me?" Yang Chung smiled bitterly. "You told me to tell the truth. I told you to tell me. You're really an idiot," Lu Mingyu said angrily. Seeing Yang Cheng's helpless look, Lu Mingyu covered her mouth and laughed. "But I like idiots like you." Yang Chung felt like he had been tricked. He pounced on Lu Mingyu like a wolf and threw her onto the soft blanket again. He kissed her until Lu Mingyu's almond-shaped eyes sparkled. "You won't let go of me, right?" Lu Mingyu asked in a soft voice. Yang Cheng nodded. "You already said that I'm not an ordinary man. If I can't even do this, then wouldn't I be too ordinary?" Lu Mingyu's face revealed a satisfied expression. Then she closed her eyes, looking like she was at his mercy. Yang Chung couldn't hold it in any longer. He hugged such a soft and elastic body and even asked himself a question. How could he bear it? Seeing that Lu Mingyu didn't have any more questions, his hands immediately reached into the woman's loose pajamas and gently pulled it to both sides. After more than an hour, the continuous moans in the room finally stopped. Lu Mingyu, who was drenched in sweat, lay in Yang Cheng's arms. Her eyes were half closed, and her pajamas were messily draped over her. She looked lazy but exhausted. Yang Cheng, on the other hand, was full of energy and seemed like he wanted to do it again. "I finally concluded which part of you isn't ordinary. You're good at doing this kind of thing." Lu Mingyu was quite resentful. Every time she finished with this man, she had the urge to sleep for a few days. Yang Cheng didn't know whether he should be proud or shy. He didn't know whether his talent was because he cultivated the endless resolve restoration scripture, or because he narrowly escaped death when he was 10 years old. As his strength rose, although he had the chronic disease of his brain, this physiological function became more and more powerful. Yang Cheng also knew how ferocious he was on the battlefield, so even if he wasn't satisfied, he didn't force Lu Mingyu to do it a few more times. "Sleep, sleep. We still have to get up early tomorrow," Yang Cheng said. Lu Mingyu shook her head. "What if Huang Yan finds out that I'm sleeping here? How would I have the face to see others?" Yang Cheng thought about it and agreed. Although he said he didn't care, she always had her own reservations. Lu Mingyu straightened her body. She was a little tired, but she could barely stand up. After fastening the belt of her pajamas, Lu Mingyu stood up unsteadily. However, before she could stand up, the whole room suddenly shook. Lu Mingyu's body swayed, and she fell into Yang Cheng's arms again. Following that tremor, the whole room began to shake. The TV, the chandelier, the books on the cabinet, the doors and windows, everything began to shake. Is it an earthquake? Chapter 320. It was said that earthquakes in Japan could be felt more than 1,000 times a year. This meant that earthquakes were as common as 3 meals a day in the eyes of the Japanese. Although Yang Cheng was no stranger to earthquakes, it was the first time for most of the guests in this hotel to experience such a thing. For a time, there were screams of women and children everywhere, and the sound of running footsteps in the corridor was endless. Yang Cheng hugged Lu Mingyu with one hand, telling Lu Mingyu not to be afraid, and moved to the corner of the room. This is just the most common earthquake. The earthquake-proof structure of the houses in Japan is very good. As long as it is not a major earthquake, it will be fine. Lu Mingyu was held in his arms and felt the warmth of his chest. She calmed down slightly and realized that although the house was shaking, she was not in any danger. She finally let out a sigh of relief. With a flushed face, Lu Mingyu exclaimed and said nervously, "It's over." Hanyan must have woken up. She is alone in the room. Seeing that I am not here, what if she looks for me? And if I go out of your room, I will definitely be seen by a lot of people. Ugh. Yang Chung smiled and said, "I will go out with you later and check everyone's room. Just say that we are going to see if anyone is injured. Wouldn't we have an excuse to explain why we are together?" Lu Mingyu thought about it and thought that this was the only way. The earthquake continued, and the room was shaking, so it didn't seem very eye-catching. The earthquake did not last long, as Yang Chung said, and it subsided. The furnishings in the room were not damaged, and everything was calm. Many guests who fled in the corridor felt very embarrassed, and most of them hurried back to their rooms. When Yang Chung and Lu Mingyu walked out of the room together, Lu Mingyu didn't look out of place. After all, she was a public relations person, and she was very good at hiding her emotions. She walked to the door of the nearest companion's room, and the light in the room was off. Lu Mingyu knocked on the door, and after a while, there was no response. Did they run out? Lu Mingyu asked with a frown. Yang Chung shrugged, and the two went to the next room. As a result, there was no one in the second room, which was quite strange. When they walked to the door of Zhang Kai in another female colleague's room, Yang Chung and Lu Mingyu found that the lights in the room were on. They knocked on the door, and Zhang Kai's timid voice came from inside. "Who is it?" They knocked on the door, and Zhang Kai's timid voice came from inside. "It's me, Zhang Kai." The door slowly opened a crack, revealing Zhang Kai's round face. Her complexion was a little pale, and she nervously called out, "Sis Mingyu." Seeing that Yang Chun was also here, she didn't feel surprised. Lu Mingyu saw that Zhang Kai seemed to be shocked and quickly asked, "Are you all right? Why do you look so pale?" Zhang Kai shook her head and didn't open the door. "I'm fine. Go back and rest, Sister Mingyu." It was obvious that she was in a hurry to get Lu Mingyu to leave. Lu Mingyu felt that the atmosphere wasn't right, and she frowned. "Are you hiding something from me? Why didn't you open the door? What are you doing with the gap?" Zhang Kai blushed, and she explained, "There's nothing like that. Sister Mingyu, I'm just tired, so I want to sleep. There was an earthquake just now. How can you calm down so easily? You must be hiding something from me." Lu Mingyu was not willing to let it go. She went forward and held onto the door, ignoring Zhang Kai's attempts to stop her, and pulled the door open. Unexpectedly, the scene in Zhang Kai's room stunned Lu Mingyu, and Yang Chung, who was standing behind, didn't expect it either. All she saw was the few female public servants that she couldn't find earlier. They were all sitting on the tatami in Zhang Kai's room. The group of women were wearing hotel pajamas, and they were gathered together. There was a huge pile of snacks, drinks, and fruits on the floor. That wasn't all. The television in the room was on, and the volume was turned down very softly. It was obvious that it was purposely turned down. As for the reason, Lu Mingyu only took a glance and immediately understood. The channel on the television was Japan's midnight adult TV station. At this moment, on the screen, there was an erotic and exciting scene of a man and a woman entangled with each other. You guys." Lu Mingyu's face instantly turned red, and Zhang Kai and the other female public servants lowered their heads in embarrassment. Yang Chung was delighted. No wonder he couldn't find them. They were all gathered to watch a special program. During the day, Zhang Kai had asked him what the vending machine was for. When he told them about its function, they all unanimously said not to watch it. He didn't expect that they would secretly watch it together in the middle of the night. They even enjoyed it and ate a huge pile of snacks. As for why he didn't ask Lu Mingyu and Zhao Hongyan to watch it together, it was mostly because of Lu Mingyu's status as a department head. Although they were like sisters, it wasn't appropriate to ask their superiors to watch this kind of program together. Moreover, Lu Mingyu was the big sister among the group of women, and she usually didn't participate in such topics. Since he didn't ask Lu Mingyu to watch, then Zhao Hongyan, who shared the same room with Lu Mingyu, obviously couldn't be informed. Yang Chung was a man, so he definitely wouldn't tell them. Lu Mingyu saw the group of sisters lowering their heads and blushing faces. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In the end, she slapped Zhang Kai's plump butt. I really have to give it to you. You're acting like an underground intelligence organization. I thought something was wrong with you. You're scaring me to death. I'm sorry. Sister Mingyu, I will definitely let you watch it next time. Oh no, do you want to watch it together now? Zhang Kai immediately said to please her. It's very cheap. It's only 1,000 yen, and you can watch it for the whole night. Who said that I blame you for this? Lu Mingyu glared at Zhang Kai angrily and said to the group of female public relations, you guys continue watching. Don't act like a thief. After that, she turned around and said to Yang Cheng, let's go and see if Hong Yin is all right. Yang Cheng touched his nose, gave a thumbs up to Zhang Kai, and followed Lu Mingyu to her room. The night ended like a farce. Early the next morning, everyone got on the bus with a tacit understanding and headed to the next stop, Nagoya. However, Yang Cheng always felt that Zhao Hongyan would look at him with a strange gaze from time to time. This made Yang Cheng suspect that Zhao Hongyan had noticed something about him and Lu Mingyu the night before. However, Yang Cheng couldn't ask her about it. Moreover, he didn't really care. The tour guide, Kawanako, didn't know where she was staying that night. This ordinary-looking Japanese woman used her weird accent to talk about Japan's local customs and practices the moment they set off. She was doing her best. However, as the things that Kawanako talked about were not attractive, the women fell asleep in the bus again after less than an hour of driving. The following schedule was more compact. After playing in Nagoya for a day, they headed to Kyoto the next day. Kyoto was a city designed according to the ancient Chong and of Huaxia. It had a large number of World Heritage sites and historical sites, so they stayed for a longer period of time. After visiting the famous Kinkakuji and Yinkakuji on the first day, Yang Cheng accompanied the group of women to walk around the mall for half a day. In comparison, the scenic spots on the second day made Yang Cheng heave a sigh of relief. They went to Seiho Temple and its courtyard, followed by the famous Nijo Castle in the afternoon. Nijo Castle was built during the Jianghu period and occupied a large area. It was built by the first shogunate general, Tokugawa Ieyasu, who ended the Warring States period and unified Japan. As there were many places to visit, Yang Cheng wasn't afraid that the women would say that they were bored and wanted to walk around the mall. After visiting a few scenic spots, Kawanako noticed that the group was a little tired, so she suggested to look for a small tea house to rest. The women, whose legs were sore and wanted to sit down, were naturally happy to do so. After entering a Japanese-style tea house, the group of people sat down and chatted while drinking kung fu tea. It was quite relaxing and pleasant. After Kawanako ordered tea for everyone, she brought the tea to the driver who accompanied them. This made a few gossipy female colleagues start to discuss whether Kawanako was having an affair with the driver. Yang Cheng sat at the door and heard the discussion. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Women are indeed talkative. Just as Yang Cheng finished his third cup of tea and was about to close his eyes to take a nap, a familiar figure that had been lingering in his mind for the past few days and couldn't get rid of appeared in Yang Cheng's sight again. He saw a figure wearing a blue dress with long hair as black as ink walking past the crossroad 2 streets away from the tea house, as though it was by accident. It was only for a moment, but Yang Cheng was sure that he didn't see it wrong. Seeing that the figure that made him unable to calm down and almost go crazy flashed into an alley again, Yang Cheng ran out of the tea house without saying a word under the astonished gazes of the women. There weren't many pedestrians in Nijo Castle, and the structure wasn't complicated. Yang Cheng was confident that he wouldn't let the figure escape again. Lu Mingyu and the others stood up and shouted for Yang Cheng, but in the blink of an eye, Yang Cheng had already gone into an alley in front and disappeared. Chapter 321. The classical buildings of the Edo period were arranged in picturesque disorder. Yang Cheng searched for the figure. After passing through 2 narrow alleys, a garden surrounded by walls appeared in front of him. Because it was winter, most of the plants had withered. The red and yellow leaves had withered on the tiles and stone slabs that had experienced the vicissitudes of time. Some branches poked out from the mottled walls of the courtyard. A few old, disheveled, and round Luohan pines were evergreen all year round in the courtyard. Their careful pruning made them look like the only verdant green in winter. There were no other tourists on the bluestone path in front of the courtyard. He didn't know if this was a scenic area or if there was no one around. What made Yangcheng excited was that he didn't lose her this time. The figure in the blue dress pushed open a wooden door in the courtyard and quietly walked in. Yangcheng followed closely to the door. The iron bars on the wooden door that had been around for God knows how many years had already rusted. However, the thick texture in the dark would made people feel the solemnity of an ancient noble's residence. When he realized that the person he wanted to see might be inside, close at hand, Yangcheng suddenly hesitated. His footsteps stopped at the door. Yangcheng clenched his hands into fists, took a deep breath, and slowly pushed the door open. What came into view was a man-made rock garden and flowing water in the courtyard. The water should never freeze, and it trickled into a small pond. Around the pond were lush plants that had been pruned for a long time. They nestled around the old houses. The elegant design didn't lose its grandeur, and one could feel the majesty of the shogunate generals in ancient times. But all of this was no longer attractive in Yangcheng's eyes, because Yangcheng's gaze, from the moment he entered the door, was already locked on the corridor in front of the mansion. The corner of her dress fluttered, and a pair of snow-white bare feet were faintly discernible. Her hair brushed against her face in the cold wind. She was as cold and serene as ever. Her eyes were still as calm as before. The face, the figure, and the aura that he hadn't seen in a long time made Yangcheng stand there in a daze, his mind blank. Soon after, there were too many complicated scenes, like the surging waves of the sea, instantly causing Yangcheng to fall into the past. In the world of ice and snow, there were pine and cypress trees that were buried in the snow all year round, and the gloomy sky was filled with flying snowflakes. A young man dressed in martial arts attire covered his arm that was constantly gushing with dark red blood. He leaned against a towering tree, and the snow in front of his feet had already been dyed red with blood. The young man's lips were pale, and his face was ashen. Only a fierce and sharp aura condensed in his eyes. However, due to the excessive blood loss and the bitter cold, coupled with the exhaustion of running and fighting for 3 days, he finally couldn't hold on any longer. In the snowy forest that stretched as far as the eye could see, one could occasionally hear the howls of snow wolves. At this moment, more than 10 soldiers wearing snow-colored capes and holding heavy firearms drove 2 armored vehicles over the mountains and stopped on a small slope not far away. The young man recognized them. They were one of the enemies that surrounded them. They were the Snow Fox Special Forces that were secretly trained in Northern Europe. Having fought in the snowy forest and snowy mountains all year round, they were more adept at fighting in the snowy region than anyone else. The Snow Foxes jumped off the armored vehicles in an orderly manner, loaded their guns, and started a carpet search in the forest using a fast but extremely complicated running method. The young man exhaled a mouthful of white mist, and the scarlet color in his eyes appeared again. This was already the 15th wave of enemies that he had met. The previous 14 waves of enemies were all killed by him alone, but he had finally suffered a significant injury. The enemy's bullets had been specially treated, and it was difficult for the wounds to heal quickly. Even forming scabs was extremely difficult. Blood kept flowing out, and this also meant that his physical strength was constantly being depleted, and he was gradually losing his vitality. However, he still didn't want to die. A cold long blade slipped into the young man's hand from his sleeve. He only had this weapon in his hand. At this moment, one of the Snow Fox soldiers that was closest to him suddenly let out a muffled groan. The soldier's neck was slashed by the sharp weapon, and blood splattered everywhere as he fell onto the snowy ground. From behind him, a slender young lady appeared. The young lady was wrapped in tight, snow camouflage clothing, and only her long black hair was dazzling in the snowy ground. Before the other Snow Fox troops could attack the young lady had already used the numerous trees around her and continuously circled around them like lightning. From time to time, she would appear, and the short blade in her hand would always leave a brilliant splash of blood on the throat of the soldier. It was as enchanting as a dance of death, but it was fatal. When the small team of Snow Foxes was completely destroyed by the young lady walked to the front of the young man. Without saying a word, and ignoring the young man's intentions, she pulled the young man's hands over, bent down, and carried the young man on her back. "Didn't you leave? Why did you come back?" The young man's arm was still bleeding, and it slowly soaked the young lady's chest. The young lady ran quickly, but she was not out of breath. She replied coldly and emotionlessly, "I came back to save you. This time, I'm in charge of bringing up the rear. That's the mission. You don't have to save me. You saved me in the rainforest, and I'll pay you back," the young lady said. The corner of the young man's mouth rose slightly. "You let me vent, and I let you live. That's a deal." "That's right. That's a fair deal, but I still owe you something." "What?" "You're the one who told me that I can still trust others. At least I can trust you." The young lady's voice was very weak, and it was as cold as ever. In the snowy plains, it was like cotton floating in the wind. Midsummer night. The congested traffic lane and the bustle of the night made every pedestrian seem impetuous. On the rooftop of a 5-story building, the young man had a poor-quality cigarette in his mouth, and his eyes were misty as he looked at the smoky street. There were people fighting there, and there were city guards chasing away hawkers. There were people who had crashed into cars, and there were all kinds of people arguing. It was like another world. The young man had just learned to smoke, but he quickly fell in love with the feeling. The hot gas rushed into his lungs, and he could feel his own existence for a short period of time. Suddenly, a ghostly figure landed on the rooftop and slowly walked towards the young man. The young man turned around and saw a girl in a blue dress. Her hair was flying in the wind, and her face had matured quite a bit, but it still looked like a lifeless puppet. "Did you see your mother?" the young man asked with a smile. "Yes," the young lady replied plainly. "Ah, you finally found her after so much trouble," the young man asked curiously. "Did she tell you her real name?" "Don't tell me your real name. Is 17? 17's eyes were emotionless, and she looked at the dark sky in the distance. "I don't have a name, and I killed her." "Who?" "The woman who gave birth to me," 17 said. The young man coughed a few times and choked on his words. He asked in confusion, "You finally found your mother. Why did you kill her?" 17 replied quietly, "She was a prostitute, and she was doing business when I found her. I asked her who my father was, and she said she had so many customers every day that she couldn't remember. She said there was someone who liked to spend a lot of money to play with pregnant women, so she kept me. But she didn't have enough money, so she didn't want me, and just left me by the side of the road, so she didn't give me a name. She asked me if I had money, and I said no. She asked if I wanted to do that kind of business with her, and she was old, so she wanted me to make money to support her." The young man flicked the ash off his cigarette and remained silent for a while. "Don't you think it's a bit rushed? It's more suitable for her to be dead. At least she doesn't have to worry about money, and she doesn't have to worry about getting old. It should be happier than being alive." "You know, I don't feel pain when I kill people," 17 said, and turned around to snatch the half-burnt cigarette from the young man's hand. A cold glint flashed across her eyes. "Let me tell you, 13, don't smoke this in front of me. I hate seeing you like this." With that, the young lady turned to leave, but the moment she turned, a crystal fell down. 13 tilted his head and smiled as he watched the ghost-like figure disappear into the night sky. He took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit it up. "Silly girl, even if you hate it, it's better than having no feelings at all." Chapter 322. Hainan Sanya. The warm sunlight shone on the white buildings of the seaside resort, the tall coconut trees swaying in the wind. Here, one could not feel the winter, nor could they feel the cold. Outside a luxurious sea-view suite was a spacious balcony. On the balcony were 2 lounge chairs with 2 umbrellas. At the front of the balcony, there was a 10-square-meter swimming pool. The clear blue water reflected the light. 2 slender women were wearing pink and light blue swimsuits respectively. Their hair was still slightly wet, and they were wearing sunglasses. They were lying on chairs and enjoying the quiet afternoon sunshine. It was Lin Ruashi and Imo Chini who came for a vacation. "Ruashi, this is so comfortable. We haven't had afternoon tea together in a long time, basking in the sun," Imo Chini said softly. Lin Ruashi picked up the white porcelain teacup on the small table beside her, took a sip of the bright English black tea, and softly said, "In." Imo Chini also knew Lin Ruashi's personality. She was always so calm, and said indifferently, "Tonight, the others said they want to go to the bonfire party by the seaside. Are you going?" Lin Ruashi put the teacup back down, shook her head, and said, "Forget it. You go, I won't go. Although I feel that with your personality, you don't really want to go to that kind of occasion. But since you came with everyone, why not participate once? I think the others will be very happy to have you participate." Mo Chinny said encouragingly. "No, you know my personality. Going will only make everyone nervous. I don't want the atmosphere to be too awkward." Lin Ruashi smiled lightly. Mo Chinny faintly sighed. "All right then, I won't go either. I'll stay with you." "You go. You're the head. This time you're the leader. I just came out to relax," Lin Ruashi said. A strange expression flashed across Mo Chinny's face. She hesitated and asked worriedly, "Ruashi, you seem to be in a bad mood. Did you quarrel with that person? If it was the old you wouldn't travel with us for no reason." No expression could be seen in Lin Ruashi's eyes under the sunglasses. She bit her thin lips and did not answer. Mo Chinny sighed softly. "It's okay if you don't want to tell me. I don't mean anything else. I'm just worried about you, so I know." Lin Ruashi suddenly said, "Chinny, I'm fine." "It's good that you're fine." Mo Chinny forced a smile. Lin Ruashi turned her head, looked at Mo Chinny, and said, "Chinny, if you like Yang Chung, marry him in the future. I think he likes you a lot, too." Mo Chinny's whole body trembled, thinking that she had heard wrong. She took off her sunglasses. Her pair of watery eyes were filled with astonishment. She stared at Lin Ruashi's beautiful face and asked, "Ruashi, what did you say?" When the two of them were together, they had always avoided the topic of Yang Chun because they cherished their friendship of many years. Even if their feelings had clearly changed because of man, the two of them still carefully protected each other's friendship. Unexpectedly, Lin Ruashi suddenly said that she wanted to divorce Yang Chung and even suggested that Mo Chinny and Yang Chung be together. Lin Ruashi didn't seem to notice Mo Chinny's agitation and said indifferently, "He said that in a few months he will divorce me. I think the reason he said is ridiculous. Since he has nothing to miss, then I have nothing to miss. After we divorce, he'll be free. If you like him, then I will give you my blessing." It was Mo Chinny's first time hearing this news. Normally, hearing such news, even if she wasn't happy, it wouldn't be bad. After all, the man she loved might officially be together with her. However, for some reason, when Mo Chinny saw Lin Ruashi's cold and indifferent expression, she couldn't feel happy at all. Instead, she felt a wave of pain in her heart. "Ruashi, what's going on between you and Yang Chung? Why are you suddenly like this? You're not the kind of person who is so casual about relationships." Mo Chinny couldn't help but ask. Lin Ruashi lowered her head. "I don't know what's going on either. Anyway, let's just divorce. From the beginning, I didn't think that there would be any good results between us." After saying that, Lin Ruashi stood up from the chair, turned around, and walked into the room. "I'm a little tired. I'm going to rest." Before Lin Ruashi walked back to the room, Mo Chinny also stood up, looking a little serious. "Wait." Mo Chinny stopped Lin Ruashi. Lin Ruashi paused and didn't look back. She asked softly, "Is there anything else?" "Ruashi, no matter what the reason is, I hope you won't give up so easily. If you didn't love him and he didn't love you, you wouldn't have come this far. At least that's what I think. I've been the third party from the beginning, but I've never regretted it because I believe that everyone has the right to pursue love. Of course, I won't destroy your relationship. As long as he wants to go home and be with you, I've never stopped him. I didn't even take the initiative to call him, and I tried not to see him in the company. Sometimes I wonder why I'm suffering to help you maintain your relationship, even though I want to have him. But I've been doing it so stupidly, even though I despise my own weakness. But today, you suddenly told me that you want to divorce Yang Chung, and you didn't even tell me the reason. I feel very sad. I feel very sad for you and for me. I feel like I've done everything wrong from the beginning." Mo Chinny's eyes were already full of tears when she said that. Lin Ruashi raised her head and remained silent. Lin Ruashi, Mo Chinny's eyes flashed with a hint of determination. "If one day you and Yang Chung divorce, and then Yang Chung gets together with me, and I become his wife. I hope you know that it's not because you quit, but because I used my own efforts to fight for my own love. That's not a form of charity. That's mine. Spoils of war. Lin Ruashi turned around and smiled brightly. Chinny, back then, you said that if you were to become the CEO of Yulei, you definitely wouldn't do as well as I do. Because you said that you're not as good as me. But today, I feel that I'm not as good as you. After Lin Ruashi finished speaking, she turned around and walked back to her room. In the sky, a few thick dark clouds floated over, gradually covering the sun, and the air started to become damp and cold. In the courtyard, Yang Cheng looked at the gloomy sky, then walked into the simple and elegant mansion. Sit down. I'll make you some tea. A woman in a blue dress slowly knelt on the short table. Her pair of snow-white arms and beautiful calves were particularly eye-catching in the dimly lit room. On the table, there was a neatly arranged tea set and a selection of fresh tea. Yang Cheng suppressed his wildly beating heart and calmly knelt down, facing the woman. His gaze occasionally drifted to the woman's cold and elegant face, and occasionally to her skillful tea-making skills. The fragrant tea emitted a delicate fragrance that refreshed the heart. I didn't expect that apart from killing, my 17 also knows how to make tea, Yang Cheng said. In a year in Japan, I forgot to kill, but I learned how to make tea. 17 placed a small bowl of tea in front of Yang Cheng. Also, I'm not your 17. Yang Cheng laughed at himself. You still have the same temper. You must hate me, or even hate me. That's true. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have gone through that. I thought you had left me forever. I didn't expect to meet you here. I also didn't expect to survive in that situation, nor did I expect to see you again. 17 lowered her head and said coldly, Why didn't you want to meet me the first 2 times? Yang Cheng asked. 17 raised her head and looked at Yang Cheng, who was suppressing his excitement. I didn't decide if I wanted to see you again. What about now? I feel that there's nothing for me to run away from you. I didn't do anything wrong, and seeing you can actually resolve all my worries, 17 said. Yang Cheng let out a long sigh and nodded. That's right. It's all my fault from the start. You're just a victim. The two fell silent. Before they met, Yang Cheng was so eager to meet her, but now that they actually met, Yang Cheng realized that he didn't know where to start. The tea is getting cold. Drink it first, 17 said. Yang Cheng nodded. Memories of the past appeared in his mind. He picked up the teacup and drank it in one gulp. This is tea tasting, not for you to drink like this, 17 frowned and said. I'm not in the mood. Yang Cheng put down the teacup and stared at 17's indifferent face. He seemed to have gathered his courage and asked, Since you're alive, where's our child? Chapter 3:23. 17's body trembled and her eyes reddened. She turned her head away. Now you're thinking about your child. Why didn't you think about your child back then? Yang Cheng closed his eyes in pain and spoke after a long while. My brain was like a pile of paste at that time. I couldn't control it. 17 sneered. You couldn't control it? Have you ever thought of controlling it? I really feel sad for my child. With a father like you, he left before he was even born. Yang Cheng's body stiffened, and he felt his scalp go numb. If someone else was there, they could even see the veins on Yang Cheng's forehead. Left? Do you think that I survived the explosion and fell into the sea without any injuries? 17 lost control of her emotions and questioned him angrily. The room fell into a dead silence again. Memories of the past flashed through Yang Cheng's mind, and his eyes reddened. On the blue sea, the waves were turbulent. A warship that was stolen from the military slowly sailed into the international waters. Under the sunlight, the sharp steel beast was untamed. On the deck of the warship, there was a large group of men of different skin colors wearing different clothes, but all of them had a murderous aura. They were all gathered together. Their faces were filled with resentment and hatred. There were at least 50 to 60 of them, and they all glared at a young man who was sitting lazily on a chair in front of them. Behind the young man stood a few officers who looked solemn and respectful. It was obvious that they respected this young man. Since you took someone else's money to deal with my men, you should have expected this day to come. So, Don't look at me with such dissatisfaction. I'll give you a chance to kill me together. I don't need to shoot you with a machine gun either. You should be satisfied. I advise you to do it quickly." The young man said with a smile. One of the white men roared in German. "Only a small team from our Braze's mercenary group participated in the battle. Why do you want to exterminate all of us? You won't even let off our relatives in the headquarters. You are simply a bloodthirsty devil. You are just using your insignificant excuse to satisfy your desire for blood." Another big man angrily said, "As a master, don't you feel ashamed when you swing your butcher's knife at children and women? You will suffer retribution." The young man suddenly opened his eyes, and a scarlet cold light surged in his eyes. "I asked you to use your hands, not your mouths." In the blink of an eye, the young man had already left his seat. When he reappeared, he had already rushed into the crowd. The two burly men who were still talking a moment ago suddenly had their heads smashed by a huge force, exploding into two clouds of blood mist. Then, like a whirlwind of death, the young man's body shuttled back and forth between the 50 to 60 prisoners of war a few times, leaving a ground full of broken limbs. Blood flowed like a river, and the dark red blood flowed down the deck into the ocean. After killing everyone, the young man showed a satisfied smile on his face. He took out a white silk handkerchief and wiped his hands. Then, he turned around and walked back to the cabin. At this moment, a young woman in a blue dress walked onto the deck. She glanced at the pool of blood in front of her and frowned. She said to the young man, 13, stop killing. Haven't you killed enough?" 13 stopped in his tracks. "My dear 17, it's not that I haven't killed enough, but there are always people who want to die." 17 shook her head in pain. 3 years ago, you told me that you wanted to eliminate Zero and live a life without killing people. But now that you've eliminated Zero, why do you always want to kill people? Those people didn't offend you, and their families didn't offend you either. 13, you weren't like this in the past. 13 smiled nonchalantly. 17, do you remember when I asked you why you like to wear blue dresses all year round? 17 was silent. You answered me that you felt a sense of accomplishment when you wore clean clothes and saw blood staining your body. 17 turned her head away. That was in the past. I don't want to kill people now. I just want to live a peaceful life. You don't like it, but that doesn't mean I don't like it. 13's eyes flashed with excitement. 17, every time I kill someone, I feel an incomparably wonderful feeling. The sense of accomplishment of having someone die in my hands can only be experienced by killing more people. You're the person I trust the most and the woman I like the most. If you object to me killing people, I'll be very angry. So, I won't allow you to object to me anymore." With that, 13 walked straight into the cabin without looking back. 17 stood at the cabin door and silently cried. Early in the morning, 13 drowsily sat up on a huge, soft velvet bed. After a night of alcohol, 13's head felt heavy. He touched his side, but there was no one there. In his daze, 13 felt something hard. He picked it up and saw that it was a letter. After opening it, there was a piece of paper with a few words written on it. The familiar handwriting made 13's eyes clear. 13, I'm leaving. I can't persuade you. You've become frightening. It's not that I want to leave you. It's because I'm pregnant with your child. Our child can't grow up in the midst of bloodshed and slaughter. I want him to grow up ordinary. If I told you that I have a child, I wouldn't have the chance to leave you. So, forgive me for only telling you after I left. If one day you become the original 13, I'll bring the child and return to your side. 17. 13's hands trembled, and the piece of paper slipped from his hands. He suddenly remembered the look in 17's eyes when she left the bar last night. He didn't feel anything last night, but now that he thought about it, her eyes were filled with determination, disgust, pain, and sadness. It was as if her entire soul was suffering in this beautiful body and was trying to escape. Was she actually saying goodbye to him? On a steep cliff on an island in the Pacific Ocean, a few heavily injured men and women were forced to the edge of the cliff. Below them were the turbulent waves and cold reefs. 13's eyes were filled with arrogant anger. The scarlet light was like the flames of hell causing the arrogant men and women to retreat. I don't care if you're psychics or mercenaries. If you want to take revenge on me, I'll accept it at any time. But you kidnapped my woman, so I'll make you suffer more than death. 13's voice was like the grinding of gears. Even though the sea breeze was howling, it still entered their ears. At the bottom of the cliff, a large number of blood-stained corpses showed the brutality of the battle. However, 13 was still standing. The last few people were forced to walk up the cliff. One of the coquettish women laughed sharply. Pluto, even if you kill all of us, your woman and the child in her stomach will be buried with us. All of us together aren't your match. But so what? We'll die, but you'll live. It'll be worse than death. 13 clenched his fists. He couldn't wait to kill these people instantly. However, not knowing 17's exact location made his heart feel like it was being stabbed by a knife. The coquettish woman took out a pocket-sized walkie-talkie and said in Japanese, "Mission failed. Explode." 13 suddenly realized what order it was. However, it was too late just as he was about to shout for it to stop. With a loud rumble, another cliff in the distance was blasted into rubble by the high explosives. A black object that looked like an iron cage fell into the sea along with the explosion. It was annihilated in the tides and swallowed by the waves? No. 13's shout couldn't stop the instantaneous explosion a few hundred meters away. He couldn't stop the cage hidden under the cliff from falling into the sea. The coquettish woman laughed. "We formed an alliance to kill you this time. Although we failed, we'll make you suffer the pain of losing your beloved woman and child for the rest of your life. This is also our success." After saying that, before 13 could vent his anger on them, the psychics jumped into the sea at the same time. They collided with the reefs and became blood splatters before being swallowed by the waves. 13 knelt on the cliff in a daze. He looked at the rising and falling tides of the sea. The unforgettable gaze of 17 from the night she left appeared in front of his eyes again. The scarlet in his eyes finally faded. Recollecting his thoughts, Yangcheng looked at the woman in front of him with a complicated expression. "It's right that you're unwilling to see me after experiencing those things and losing your child. I'm indeed not worthy of you seeing me." Yangcheng's eyes were bloodshot. He smiled bitterly. "However, I'm already satisfied that you're still alive. Go. Seeing you today is the last time we'll see each other." 17 stood up and combed her messy hair expressionlessly. Yangcheng stood up shakily. His heart ached as if it was bitten by a snake. He looked at the woman who was less than a foot away from him. 17, I know that it's useless to say anything. When you fell into the sea, I suddenly understood many things. It's a pity that I didn't understand when you were by my side. Don't say any more. I don't want to hear it." 17 rejected coldly. Yangchun smiled bitterly. "Do you know, in the year I've been back in China, I met a woman who looks very much like you. Her appearance, her personality, the way she speaks, and the most similar thing about her is her gaze. I once thought that she was sent to my side by God to replace me, but I realized that she is she, and you are you. You're 17. No one can replace 17. Yangcheng turned around silently. He gritted his teeth and made up his mind. He strode forward and was about to leave. 13. 17 suddenly called out. Yangcheng turned around and looked at her blankly. 17's eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She suddenly pounced into Yangcheng's arms and hugged Yangcheng tightly. Yangcheng was stunned for a moment before he understood what was going on. He felt warmth in his heart and hugged the crying woman in his arms. "Don't go, 17." Yangcheng heard the mournful murmurs and felt a sense of loss. He was about to comfort her when he felt that something was wrong. How could it be? 17, who was in his arms, slowly left Yangcheng's side and took 2 steps back. She still had the familiar tear-stained face, but she looked at Yangcheng with a playful gaze. Yangcheng lowered his head in a daze. A dagger with golden threads wrapped around it was stabbed into his chest. A beautiful flower of blood bloomed on Yangcheng's chest. Chapter 3:24. Yangcheng couldn't wrap his head around it for a moment. The sudden change of events had completely exceeded his ability to think. First of all, Why did 17 stab his heart with a dagger? Secondly, how could his body be so easily pierced through? Moreover, he didn't feel any killing intent at all. Even if he was caught off guard, his sharp senses wouldn't allow anyone to take out a dagger to stab him. Your Majesty Pluto, has it been too many years since you felt the pain of being injured? 17 asked mockingly. She wiped away the tears at the corner of her eyes. How is it? The feeling of having your heart pierced isn't bad, right? No wonder you're called a god. You can still stand with your heart pierced. Yangcheng woke up abruptly. He looked at the woman in front of him, who had a completely different expression, and roared, "You're not 17. Ha ha." 17 laughed loudly as if she had heard the funniest thing in the world. "Of course I'm not that bitch. That woman fainted more than a year ago and sank into the sea," the woman said proudly. Yangcheng's lips started to turn pale. The dagger that pierced his heart obviously had a strong chemical component. What made Yangcheng even more terrified was that his body's super strong self-recovery ability was weakening. If it was in the past, even if his heart was pierced, he could still recover normally. This was the miraculous ability of his strong body after being illuminated by the divine light and cultivating the endless resolve restoration scripture. But now, Yangcheng clearly felt that his body's recovery was extremely slow. Because of this, if he pulled out the dagger hastily, he wouldn't be able to stop the bleeding in time. The high pressure in his heart would definitely cause a large amount of blood to spurt out. If that happened, it wasn't impossible for his body to be completely destroyed. However, compared to his own miserable state, hearing this woman say that the Real 17 was already dead was a bigger blow to Yangcheng. Perhaps this was the feeling of going from heaven to hell. When he saw the living 17, he was still immersed in a kind of ecstasy. Who would have thought that this was all a trap? It was a trap to lure him into a trap so that he could assassinate him. However, even so, there were still too many questions in Yangcheng's mind. After all, to plot against him so precisely required more than just acting skills. How could this fake 17 follow me without being discovered? After all, to be able to grasp his whereabouts 3 times in a row, appear at the right time, and hide well was definitely not an easy feat also. How did she know so much about 17? How did she disguise herself so well? He even knew what had happened between them in the past. What was even more unbelievable was that he couldn't acutely sense the other party's movement to assassinate him. What was that drug that weakened his self-recovery ability? One had to know that ordinary poisons posed no threat to him at all. It was definitely not as simple as poison. Also, when was he poisoned? I know you must have a lot of questions. Before my partner arrives, I can answer some of them for you. The fake 17 giggled and walked 3 feet away from Yangcheng. Then, she turned around leisurely. In the blink of an eye, the 17, who was dressed in a blue dress, changed. Kawanako? No matter how calm Yangcheng was, he widened his eyes. Kawanako giggled and said, "Mr. Yang, now you know why I can grasp your whereabouts, and you can't find me." Yangcheng came to a sudden realization. No wonder I didn't see 17 when Kawanako was explaining to us, but met the fake 17 when we went to the mall in private and had our own free time. Today, at Nijo Castle, Kawanako pretended to send tea to the driver. She actually had a plan. She purposely changed into 17 to lure him here. Come to think of it, the so-called "no one is outside" in this courtyard was arranged long ago. However, his longing for 17 and all kinds of excited emotions made him unwilling to think about these weird details. Besides, he subconsciously thought that no one would be a threat to him, so he let his guard down. Such a deep plan. However, your disguise is really perfect, but how did I know about that bitch's past with you? You want to ask about this, right? Kawanako sneered. You better watch your mouth. If it wasn't for the unclear situation, Yangcheng would have already gone forward to kill Kawanako, although he didn't know how much of his strength he could use. Kawanako pretended to take a few steps back and said with a smile, "Your Majesty Pluto, do you still remember a gorgeous woman among the people you killed on the island in the Pacific Ocean a year ago?" Yang Chung squinted his eyes and recalled. He immediately remembered that it was the woman who gave the order to explode the bomb while laughing. What's her relationship with you? Yang Chung had already noticed something. The smile on Kawanako's face faded and she said coldly, "She's my elder sister, Yukiana. I'm her younger sister. You can call me Nine-Tailed." Yang Chung suddenly realized, Takamagura, Nine-Tailed White Fox. Ah, I didn't expect your Majesty Pluto to know my name. QB clapped her hands and turned around again. In an instant, Kawanako was no longer there. What was left was a seductive woman wearing a pink Japanese kimono with a fox fur scarf around her neck. Her every frown and every smile was swaying beautifully. Every movement she made exuded a natural charm. So, Takamagara was involved in that incident. Yang Chung smiled bitterly. If Yamada sect was the strongest ninja organization in Japan, then Takamagara, which had very few members, would be the other strongest organization with the ability to conceal themselves. Legend had it that Takamagara was the realm of gods where the sun god resided. All the Japanese gods lived there. After the emperor died, he would ascend to Takamagara. On the other hand, the real Takamagara was an organization formed by a group of monsters with supernatural powers. Although they had very few members, each of them had extraordinary abilities. The nine-tailed white fox in front of him. Yang Chung had heard of her before. She was most proficient in illusions. She could disguise herself into various characters, and her voice and smile were exactly the same. The scariest thing was this woman could even read minds. So, she could even understand some of the memories of the person who was disguised. A sharp light flashed in Yang Cheng's eyes. He asked, "Since you can imitate 17 to the point where I can't recognize you, you must have read 17's memories." Nine-tailed white fox didn't mind at all. She smiled proudly and said, "That's right. I'm not afraid to tell you that after my sister Yukiana gave the order, I was the one who controlled the detonation of the bomb. In fact, before that, I was the woman who had been watching over you. So, I've read a lot of 17's memories. So, you're the most direct executioner." Yang Chung laughed strangely. Nine-tailed looked at Yang Chung mockingly. "Your Majesty Pluto, it seems that you still don't understand. The reason why your woman died was because you killed too many people who shouldn't have been killed. You became everyone's enemy and a threat to everyone. Not to mention, you have the Godstone in your hands, but you refused to hand it over. You blocked everyone's path, so you're the executioner who killed your woman." Just as she finished speaking, the door of the courtyard was slowly pushed open. Several men and women in different attire walked in. Nine-Tailed's face revealed a rather proud look. "You guys came really late. Were you worried that I wouldn't be able to succeed?" Yang Chung turned around. He only took a cursory glance, and his face turned solemn. Chapter 325. Nine-Tailed, you coquettish fox. I didn't expect that there would be a day where you could get things done. An Asian woman with short blonde hair wearing a sexy black leather jacket said to Nine-Tailed Arctic Fox with a mocking smile as she walked around Yang Chun with an incomparably hot body. Nine-Tailed snorted, "Silly cat, do you think everyone is like you, only knowing how to fight and not use their brains?" Speaking of using their brains, how can they compare to Tokugawa-kun? The woman called Silly Cat's gaze flew to a man with white hair and beard who led the way in. Although this man looked old, his face was ruddy and his skin was smooth. There were no signs of aging at all. His eyes were like a pool of cold water, staring at Yang Chung without any ripples. Yang Chun looked at the white-haired man, then looked at the man and woman following behind him. They were the two great Jinins that he had clashed with several times in the past, Hanya and Tanuki, but Tengu was nowhere to be seen. Yang Chung didn't know that Tengu had already been killed by Hanya. When Hanya saw Yang Chung, there was a complicated look in her eyes, while Tanuki couldn't help but laugh sneakily, as if he had seen something funny. As for the others who came, 3 of them were wearing blue leather jackets. They were America's Blue Storm mutants. Among them was Judy, who had been released during the battle in Tibet. Judy's beautiful face was burning. It was obvious that she was overjoyed to see Yang Chung injured. Back then, Blue Storm suffered heavy losses because of Yang Chung and suffered great humiliation. She relied on Venus protection to save her life. Now, she brought 2 other members and cooperated with 2 major Japanese organizations to plot against Yang Chung. As for the other 3 people, Yang Chung was rather puzzled. It was a red-robed cardinal of the church and 2 Knights Templar armored swordsmen. Yang Chung didn't know why the Vatican suddenly wanted to participate in the plan against him. "Your Majesty Pluto, we meet again," Judy said with a charming smile. Yang Chung leaned back. The gradual weakening of his body made him realize the potency of the drug in his body. He could not even stand properly and could only lean against the doorframe. "I knew it. Even Takamajihara wouldn't be able to concoct a drug that I can't deal with. So you're involved as well." Yang Chung smiled wryly. If there was anyone in this world who could concoct a poison or medicine that was effective against him, it could only be Blue Storm. It was not impossible for an organization that had amassed the most advanced technology in the world, which was a combination of Esper abilities and technology, to develop a medicine that targeted him. Sure enough, Judy nodded and admitted, "Your Majesty Pluto, the medicine we prepared for you is unique in the world. Because of your special physique, ordinary elemental poisons are unable to harm you. Therefore, after various studies, we chose to use the radioactive element, polonium, as the main element. A total of $40 million of concentrated polonium, plus $200 million of other elements and research costs. It's all in the cup of tea you just drank. Polonium, huh?" Yang Chung lowered his head and looked at the teacup he had just drunk. The characteristic of polonium was that it was completely colorless and tasteless in water, so it was normal for him not to be able to distinguish it. "You spent nearly $300 million just to develop a medicine to deal with me. Isn't that too wasteful?" "It's not wasteful." Judy walked forward and stared at the dagger in Yang Cheng's chest that had pierced into his heart. She sneered, "Your Majesty Pluto, haven't you noticed that your perception has become very slow? You can't feel Miss Ninetailed's killing intent, and you can't sense that she wants to stab you with a dagger. More importantly, your body is no longer so tough, and your wound, there's no way for it to heal itself. These are the effects of radioactive elements. Alpha particles can effectively inhibit your body's regenerative function, and through the constant collision of particles, your body's tissues are no longer as strong as before." Only then did Yang Chung realize that his so-called inability to perceive and Nine-tailed being able to succeed so easily was also due to the influence of the medicine. In other words, this medicine not only affected his physiological functions, but also inhibited his perception and brain thinking. "Actually, I also have to thank Your Majesty Pluto for not killing me last time. After I returned to the headquarters, I was able to provide a lot of direct information to the headquarters." Judy said, "The strength of a main god lies in the dual combination of body and consciousness. As for the legendary ability that is restricted by the Treaty of Gods, we are not god-level characters, so we are not afraid. After all, in the face of non-god-level characters, can't be unsealed. I think Your Majesty Pluto will definitely not violate it, unless Your Majesty Pluto wants to become the common enemy of the other main gods. Therefore, this drug that was designed for you is born." Yang Chung sneered, "It's really hard for you to use nuclear weapons technology to deal with me. However, do you think that you can kill me like this?" "No." The one who spoke was the white-haired man, who was also the leader of Yamada sect, Ground Ninja Noriko Okawa. The entire setup this time seemed to be his doing. "Pluto, you and I used to be Zero's assassins. Although you are not familiar with me, I know more about you than anyone else," Noriko Okawa said in Japanese in an extremely flat and lifeless tone. "Although most people don't know, I'm very clear that you obtained the position of Pluto from the leader of Zero by killing a god. The old leader of Zero, who was also the first Pluto, once told me some information about the main gods. I know that, theoretically, the main gods are immortal, but if the main god's body is destroyed, he definitely can't be reborn immediately. As far as I know, if the main god body is destroyed, he can only choose the path of reincarnation, and reincarnation is definitely not a matter of 10 years or decades. Yang Cheng's pupil shrunk. This Noriko Okawa's understanding of the god level had actually reached such a level. Noriko Okawa continued, "So, regardless of whether we can get the god stone from you or not, as long as your body is destroyed today, you won't be a threat to us at all." Yang Cheng sneered. "Didn't I give you the god stone long ago? Why are you still asking me for it?" "That's fake." Noriko Okawa almost squeezed out a few words from the gaps of his teeth. He said with hatred, "You're really good at deceiving all of us. I initially thought that you would exchange the real god stone for your beloved woman, but it turned out to be fake. The real god stone must still be hidden in some corner by you. Your Majesty Pluto, Chief Tokugawa obtained a fake god stone and has attracted many enemies. Even if he tells others that his god stone is fake, they won't believe him. This is really a sinister move," Judy said with a sigh. Yang Qing looked at them playfully. "Your blue storm should be one of the forces fighting for the god stone, right? Otherwise, I reckon you wouldn't have colluded with Yamada sect." "That's right, but so what? As long as the result is beneficial to us, we don't mind wasting more time," Judy smiled. Yang Qing looked at the three members of the Vatican who kept quiet. "I'm curious, are the people of the Vatican here to snatch the Godstone too?" The cardinal spoke in Italian. "Your Majesty Pluto, I'm Bruno from the Japanese diocese. I'm here today because you've agreed to the alliance agreement with the Dark Parliament. This isn't good news for the Vatican. Therefore, we've decided to participate in this plan." Yang Cheng was depressed. If he knew this would happen, he wouldn't have signed the agreement with Lilith. Now that he was exposed, he wouldn't have been afraid. However, with his current body condition, he might really fail miserably. "I think Lord Bishop doesn't have to do anything." Noriko Okawa extended his hand, and an ancient Japanese samurai sword suddenly flew into his hand from a nearby sword rack. "Pluto, do you recognize this sword?" Noriko Okawa then pulled out the blade from the sheath. A ray of autumn light flashed in front of Yang Cheng's eyes. On the samurai sword, there were dense scriptures written on it. On one side of the sword, there was a lifelike ancient dragon carved. "Demon sword, magical samurai." Yang Cheng immediately thought of this name because this sword was too famous in the world of assassins. Before Yang Cheng officially became an assassin of Zero, the #1 assassin of Zero, the legend of the assassin world, was the one who used this magical samurai. As for who it was, there was no specific explanation. The samurai was the most famous type of sword in the Edo period. However, because other weapons would be damaged when they collided with it, it was called the demon sword because of its sharpness. Later, the descendant of the Tokugawa shogunate, the ancestor of the Tokugawa family, was killed by the samurai. Because of this, a large number of samurai demon swords were destroyed. However, the strongest samurai demon sword that was cursed by the bloodthirsty curse was left behind. The magical Lotus Sutra was engraved with dragon patterns. As long as it was soaked in blood, the dragon patterns would be dyed red, and it would be able to unleash infinite power. No wonder Noriko Okawa could gain the trust of the first Pluto. It turned out that he was once the most powerful person in Zero. "Seems like you know him." Noriko Okawa caressed the blade and said with pride, "The reason why we set up the trap here is because this is the ancestral home of our Tokugawa family. It's an honor for our Tokugawa family to slay a god here. Our Tokugawa ancestors were harmed by the Devil Blade, but the strongest Devil Blade is still in the hands of the Tokugawa clan. You're an opponent worthy of my sword. Even though your true strength has been suppressed by a special drug, you're still worthy of me using the samurai to kill you." After Noriko Okawa finished speaking, he placed the blade in front of Yang Cheng. "I'll ask again, where's the god stone?" Yang Cheng felt pain even when he breathed. If it wasn't for his strong body and pure, endless resolve restoration scripture, he would have died 100 times over after his heart was pierced. "Even if I reincarnate today, I won't tell you." Yang Cheng smiled. "Moreover, you might not be able to kill me." "Ignorant!" Noriko Okawa shouted. The demon sword in his hand was swift and graceful. Yang Cheng's face turned pale. He spat out a mouthful of blood and looked down in disbelief. Half of the demon's sword had already pierced through his heart. Other than the poisonous golden silk dagger, his heart was pierced through by the demon's sword at the same time. The drug developed by Blue Storm actually made his brain slow down. He didn't even have time to think about dodging, and his body had lost its ability to move. Yang Cheng felt dizzy and dizzy. The strength in his body was draining rapidly, and the scene in front of him started to blur. Finally, the world turned dark. Chapter 326. On the desolate Gobi Desert, endless yellow sand and small hills, weathered, oddly shaped rocks formed a desolate and tragic world. Behind a small slope covered by rocks, a middle-aged man and a child were leaning side by side against the stone wall. The man was holding a half-empty bottle of Remy Martin XO. His unkempt face was unshaven, his eyes were half-closed, and the wine red on his cheeks made him look lazy, as if he was going to fall asleep at any time. "Uncle, what kung fu did you teach me? Why is it so magical?" The boy asked casually. At the same time, he was playing with 2 stones in his hand. In this boring place, when he wasn't training, he could only play with these little things to relieve his tiredness. The middle-aged man snorted and said with a slightly hoarse voice, "What's wrong? How is it magical? After I finished training this morning, my leg was cut by someone, but once I practiced the kung fu you taught me, the wound is almost healed now," the child said proudly. The man laughed a few times. "You're still far from it. Practice well." "Uncle, what's the name of his kung fu?" the child asked curiously. "Name? I forgot. It's fine if you don't know. Anyway, in this world, only you and I know it. You can call it whatever you want," the man said casually. The boy's curiosity didn't diminish. He continued to ask, "Uncle, what do you think will happen if you practice this kung fu to the 9th level?" "Uncle, what level are you at?" The middle-aged man closed his eyes. He seemed to be a little sleepy. He said in a daze, "I don't know. I've only practiced to the 7th level, separation. I haven't understood the 8th level, life and death. Not to mention the 9th level, the last level, rebirth." The boy looked disappointed. "Uncle, you're so old, and you've only practiced to the 7th level. Then if I want to practice to the 9th level, I'll have to wait until I become an old man." "Nonsense. This has nothing to do with age. If you understand it, then you understand it. If you don't, it doesn't matter how old you are. Then how can you understand it?" the boy asked. The man didn't speak anymore. He had actually fallen asleep and started to snore thunderously. The boy sighed helplessly, his little face facing the deserted Gobi Desert. He revealed a deep look that didn't match his age. He was in a daze. At some point in time, gloomy raindrops began to fall from the sky. In the imperial court, Noriko Okawa looked at Yang Cheng, who was no longer breathing, and slowly retracted the mystical technique Muramesa. Without support, Yang Cheng's body softly slid down from the doorframe and lay on the ground. His blood stained the floor. The flood dragon carving on the demon blade, after absorbing the essence blood, had become scarlet and ferocious, as though it was about to leave the blade. A surging, murderous aura spread out from the blade, causing the surrounding people to frown. "It's a good blade. It's rumored to be cursed by bloodlust. I didn't expect it to really exist." A strange look flashed in Cardinal Bruno's eyes. "I wonder if this blade, or the heretic's demonic weapon, the butcher's blade, is more savage." Noriko Okawa didn't answer and kept his blade. He just looked at Yang Cheng, who was no longer moving on the ground. A hideous smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Even a true god can be slaughtered, let alone a human who picked up a god position by killing a god. He's overestimating himself. You can't say that. If it wasn't for the radioactive drug we developed, coupled with Miss QB's superb acting skills and her magical mind-reading ability. Oh, of course, we also needed Leader Okawa's understanding of the god position and our meticulous cooperation to defeat him. It's not an exaggeration to say that he's a god. Judy's words sounded like a compliment, but there was no admiration on her face. Instead, there was a hint of mockery. No matter what, from now on, there won't be another Pluto within 100 years. As for where he will reincarnate to and when he will wake up, it has nothing to do with us. We only need to investigate the specific location of the Godstone. Without him guarding it, It won't be difficult to get it, Noriko Okawa said proudly. Even if he comes to seek revenge, we might be able to become gods with the God Stone. If we can't become gods, he won't be able to vent his anger when we're no longer in this world. Leader Okawa is right, but who's going to look for the God Stone? Who's going to own it after it's found? Judy asked with a charming smile. Noriko Okawa sneered. Why? Does Blue Storm want to dominate the world? Let's not talk about who's going to find the God Stone first. If I don't let you leave today, you won't have a chance to live. As soon as he finished, Noriko Okawa's martial arts suit fluttered even though there was no wind. The demon blade in his hand started to vibrate on its own, faintly letting out a sharp metallic sound that sounded like the wailing of ghosts and the howling of wolves. Feeling the terrifying murderous aura coming towards them, Judy and the other 2 members of Blue Storm, as well as the 3 people from the Vatican, took a few steps back vigilantly and looked at Noriko Okawa with fear in their eyes. Hanya and Tanuki had seen their leader's ability before. He was at the peak of ground ninja. One more step, and he would be a legendary super powerhouse at the level of heavenly ninja. How could an ordinary person imagine that? For the 2 of them to reach the level of Jinin, their combat power was already extraordinary. However, the higher they went, the more they felt the huge gap between Jinin and ground ninja, and how difficult it was to cross. As for Kyubi and the short-haired lady from Takamagara, they had already retreated to a corner and looked like they were watching a good show. They weren't afraid of Noriko Okawa's murderous aura. Leader, the 2 of us are enough to kill them, Hanya bowed and said. Noriko Okawa snorted coldly. Trash. There's no difference whether you kill them or not. Now that Pluto is dead, the 2 of you will head to Huaxia in a few days to search for Godstone. You must find it this time. Noriko Okawa said this in front of Blue Storm, the Vatican, and Takamagara. It was clear that he didn't mind killing anyone who stood in his way with the demon blade. Being looked down upon, Judy and the rest were furious. However, they couldn't say it out loud. They didn't expect Noriko Okawa, who was at the level of ground ninja, to have such terrifying ability. The experts of Yamada's sect might not be as many as the elites of other organizations. However, the ninjas of Yamada's sect had the advantage in numbers. Moreover, their ninjutsu and illusions were ever-changing. They were definitely not to be trifled with. Now that the biggest obstacle to obtaining Godstone was Pluto's death, the Godstone had become an item without an owner. Whoever had the strongest fist would be the biggest winner. The headquarters of Yamada's sect was in Japan, which was adjacent to Huaxia. They had a large number of people, and Noriko Okawa's ability was unfathomable. Mutants like them couldn't resist him at all. It was obvious that Yamada's sect had a higher chance of obtaining Godstone than the other organizations. What was more difficult to guard against was Noriko Okawa's understanding of the deity position and Godstone. After all, when Zero obtained Godstone and experimented on it, Noriko Okawa was already a core member of Zero. His understanding of the usage of Godstone far surpassed the others. However, compared to these worries, Judy and the rest wanted to survive more. If Noriko Okawa really wanted to kill a few of them, it would be hard for them to escape. Leader Okawa, we're only here to help you kill Pluto, not to snatch God's stone from you. The Vatican only fights against heretics. Since Pluto's body has been destroyed, we'll leave now. Seeing that the situation wasn't good, Blueno decided to escape first regardless of whether he would fight for Godstone in the future. However, before he could turn around and leave, two ghost-like figures blocked the door. Tanuki and Hanya blocked the way from the left and right. They had already revealed their sharp shurikens in their hands and looked like they were about to attack at any time. Why are you two so stubborn? Blueno frowned, and his nerves were already tense. The two holy knights beside him seemed like they were about to draw their swords. Noriko Okawa snorted in disdain. Hanya, Tanuki, let them go. Yes. The two of them immediately dodged to the side. Leader Okawa still knows right from wrong. The cold sweat on Blueno's back stopped. Right from wrong? I just don't care about the lives of ants. Noriko Okawa laughed mockingly. When I get Godstone, I'll be able to become a deity. By then, organizations like yours that use the name of deity to deceive others won't even be considered as ants. You, Blueno wanted to reprimand him, but he immediately remembered that he was still in the tiger's mouth. He knew that he and the two holy knights wouldn't be able to withstand that terrifying, murderous aura. Perhaps only the two crusade army leaders of the Vatican could exchange a few blows with him. Even the Vatican's secret techniques might not be enough to defeat him. Thinking of this, Blueno swung his sleeves angrily and turned around to leave. Judy and the other two members of Blue Storm also knew that it would be dangerous to stay. Seeing that the Vatican that was closest to them was about to make a strategic retreat, they quickly decided to leave as well. At least, they couldn't wait for Noriko Okawa to humiliate them. Both parties had the same thought. Let the lunatic Noriko Okawa be happy for a while. Once they gathered enough strength, they could even plot against Pluto. How could they not be able to kill him? However, at this moment, a voice that made their scalp numb and hearts tremble rang from behind them. I didn't say, "You guys can leave." The 6 people from the Vatican and Blue Storm turned around at the same time. Their faces instantly turned pale. Even Noriko Okawa seemed to be shocked. He took a few steps back with a weird expression and stared at the door hesitantly. As for the 2 demonesses of Takamagara, their mouths were half open as if they had seen something horrifying. Yang Chung, who was originally lying on the ground and had lost all signs of life, had regained his breath. His body was trembling like a willow branch that was about to be pulled out. He staggered from the ground and then stood up again weakly. Chapter 3:27. Yang Cheng's blood-stained face was still pale, but his eyes gradually became clear. There was a faint smile on his lips, as if he was in a good mood. Lowering his head, Yang Chung smiled as he looked at the poisonous dagger in his chest. He grabbed it, pulled it out, and casually threw it to the corner where the white nine-tailed fox was standing. The sound of metal colliding with the wooden floor could be heard. Once the dagger was pulled out, there was no sign of blood splattering out from Yang Cheng's chest. Yang Chung shook his head and took off his jacket and underwear. His upper body was bare, and he casually threw the blood-stained clothes to the side. At this moment, everyone could clearly see that the wound on Yang Cheng's chest that was pierced by the 2 sharp blades had actually healed completely. How was this possible? Judy and the others from Blue Storm were the most incredulous. Their medicine should have been able to completely prevent Yang Cheng's regenerative ability, but now, it seemed like Yang Cheng's self-recovery ability was even better than before. Noriko Okawa finally furrowed his brows, and his expression was uncertain. The Muramasa demon blade in his hand began to tremble slightly, and a murderous aura spread out majestically. Hanya and Tanuki followed closely on both sides of Okawa, and they looked at Yang Chung with a complicated gaze. Under the various gazes of the crowd, Yang Chung moved the muscles in his neck, as if there was no one around him who was staring at him fiercely. Instead, he began to mutter something to himself. So that's how it is. On the day 17 died, I cultivated the 8th level of life and death to the great perfection realm. The so-called life and death is to break through the separation of life and death, the separation of yin and yang, and understand the boundary between life and death. Only then can one be considered to have cultivated life and death. I was wondering why I couldn't cultivate the last level, rebirth. Rebirth. Rebirth, isn't it death? But suicide is too stupid. Who would think that they can only cultivate martial arts after dying? How brilliant. No wonder there's no way to cultivate the 9th level. That's not right. Most people, even if they mastered the 8th layer, might not be able to think of the 9th layer after they die. Looks like the 9th layer is really difficult to master. Seeing that Yang Chung turned a blind eye to them, Noriko Okawa's eyes were filled with hatred. What are you mumbling about? Only then did Yang Chung lift his head and reach out to touch his chest. He laughed and said, "Tokagawa, this stab of yours really makes me love and hate it at the same time. What should I do? You're the one I want to kill, but you're also half my benefactor." Noriko Okawa had already realized that Yang Chung seemed to have undergone some sort of transformation through this death. However, He dispelled this thought as soon as it appeared. Are you kidding me? The guy whose heart was pierced by the demonic blade actually became stronger? No one knew that this situation that was supposed to kill him eventually became the stepping stone for Yang Cheng's endless resolve restoration scripture to break through the 8th layer and reach the highest realm of the 9th layer, rebirth. Back then, 17's death made Yang Cheng understand a lot. At the same time, he mastered the 8th layer, life and death, to the highest realm, rebirth. However, for more than a year, he still had no clue about the 9th layer, rebirth. This made Yang Cheng feel helpless and depressed. That was because Yang Cheng desperately hoped that he could use the endless resolve restoration scripture to suppress or even cure the stubborn disease in his brain. After all, this disease would make him go berserk if he killed too many people. It was like a ticking time bomb, even more terrifying than a bomb. If he lost his mind, the number of people he killed would be incomparable to the power of a bomb. Just now, his self-recovery ability was weakened by the radioactive drug, and his body became weak. Yang Cheng's heart was pierced by the poisonous dagger and the demonic blade, Muramasa. Such fatal attacks could be said to be hanging by a thread. However, at the moment when he was about to die completely, Yang Cheng's strong physique and consciousness finally brought a spark of life. This also made Yang Cheng finally understand the true meaning of the 9th layer of the endless resolve restoration scripture at the moment when he was about to die. Break through the life and death of others, and finally break through the life and death of oneself. Just as Yang Cheng once said, there were 2 types of people in the world that were the most terrifying. One was a lunatic because he didn't know what fear was, and the other was a person who wasn't afraid of death. However, in the past, Yang Cheng thought that he wasn't afraid of death, but he restrained his instincts in his heart. Now that he had reached the 9th layer, rebirth, he finally understood what death was. This was a kind of magical understanding that could only be understood but not expressed in words. Just like what the drunk man always said in his memory, if you understand it, you understand it. If you don't understand it, it's useless to say it. At the moment when Yang Cheng understood the last layer, the inner force of the endless resolve restoration scripture that had been restrained in his body suddenly surged. The radioactive elements that had suppressed his self-recovery ability were all imprisoned and couldn't play any more role. Moreover, Yang Cheng felt that his physique and consciousness were many times stronger than before. Even if he pulled out the dagger from his heart, the blood wouldn't even be able to spill out before it could completely heal itself. Yang Cheng had a strange feeling that his true chi of the endless resolve restoration scripture had reached a peak state, and above the peak, there seemed to be an invisible barrier blocking it. Yang Cheng had a hunch that the 9th layer might not be the true peak, because the strength of the true chi at the 9th layer was even comparable to the strength of his ability after he unsealed it. This meant that when inner force was cultivated to a high level, it was actually a power that could be compared to God power. However, since inner force cultivation that had been passed down from the ancient East had such power, could there be existences in this world who could cultivate inner force and become as powerful as the Lord of Gods? Too many thoughts flashed through Yang Cheng's mind in an instant. At this moment, the existence of the people around him didn't seem so important anymore. This was because he felt that he had entered a whole new realm. Just as Yang Cheng was pondering these thoughts that he had never had before, the 6 people from Blue Storm and the Vatican, who had been watching nervously, looked at each other. Seeing that Yang Cheng didn't seem to have any intention of moving, they turned around and planned to escape as soon as possible. No matter what changes had happened to Yang Cheng, they felt that it wasn't something they could handle. However, even if Yang Cheng was thinking about other things, the situation in the outside world, including every drop of rain, couldn't escape his senses. I told you not to leave, but you insisted on leaving. Then, don't leave forever. As soon as Yang Cheng finished his sentence, his body suddenly disappeared from his original position. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Judy and the others. The rain poured down, but when the raindrops fell beside Yang Cheng, they were actually blocked by an invisible air shield. This was the protective, true energy that could naturally be used after one's inner force reached great perfection. Yangqing looked at Judy and the others whose faces were pale and whose hair and clothes were starting to get wet. He laughed weirdly and said, "Judy, you had Aphrodite's protection last time, which allowed you to escape. This time, don't tell me there's a bubble talisman again? Your Majesty Pluto, please let us go this time. The ones who planned everything against you were Noriko Okawa and the two from Takamagara who wanted to take revenge. We only provided some technological." Judy couldn't finish her sentence because she felt a murderous aura that was even more majestic than Noriko Okawa's. It was as if an army of thousands of men and horses was sweeping towards her, suppressing her to the point that she couldn't even open her mouth. This wasn't the murderous aura that she felt when she met Yang Chung previously. This was a more solid and heavy aura than murderous aura. However, it was harder to resist than murderous aura, as if it had the power to make one crawl and beg for mercy. Not only her, but the other two members of Blue Storm and the three from the Vatican had almost forgotten to escape and resist. Yang Cheng's true energy from the endless resolve restoration scripture was circulating freely in his meridians. As he had broken through the realm of rebirth, killing no longer had the concept of violence and mercy to him. All that was left was the purest and most noble aura. I'm only asking you if you have a talisman. Since you don't, then all of you can die. After Yang Chung finished speaking calmly, he walked slowly towards Judy and the others as if he was buying vegetables on the street. Judy and the others didn't move at all. When Yang Cheng's figure passed by Judy and the red-robed cardinal, Bruno, his footsteps were as if he was taking a stroll in the park. There was nothing special about him as he continued walking back into the house. Just as he stepped through the door, Judy and the other five fell to the ground with a loud thud while maintaining their terrified expressions. Soaked in the cold rain, it seemed like they were going to die. Okawa and the others in the house were all shocked. None of them could understand how Yang Chung managed to kill them just by walking past them. Moreover, he didn't even shed a single drop of blood. Chapter 328. Actually, Yang Chung didn't think that it was special even though it was a magical and horrifying scene to others. Now that his internal strength had reached great perfection, he was finally able to release and use his true chi freely. When he walked past Judy and the others, on one hand, the strong pressure made it hard for them to resist and even made them forget to breathe. On the other hand, the strong true chi that Yang Chung was emitting formed an aura that was similar to a domain. In this aura, Yang Chung only slightly released the restoration scripture's inner strength. The extremely pure, true chi produced a penetrating pressure that directly caused the 6 people to suffer internal injuries that were hard to detect. The 6 people's internal organs were shaken to pieces and they fell to the ground dead. As for why they didn't vomit blood, it was because they collapsed before the blood reached their mouths and noses. After playing such a miraculous move, Yang Chung wasn't too proud. It was just a normal move that he could perform at his current realm. It wasn't exquisite and was merely using his strength to suppress others. Noriko Okawa brought Hanya and Tanuki with him and waited solemnly. Even the 9-tailed white fox and the short-haired lady who were smiling earlier stood on the other side of Yang Chung with a solemn expression. They were very clear that the speed that Yang Chung displayed was beyond the scope of their understanding. Other than fighting, there was no other way out. Legend has it that among Hua Xia's ancient Qigong, there's a technique called shrinking the ground into an inch. When it's practiced to a high level, the user can reach the level of teleportation. It seems that Your Majesty Pluto is almost the same as the legendary technique, Noriko Okawa said with a heavy tone. The devil blade ingenious spell Murasame that was still flickering with a bloody light was constantly trembling in his hand as if it was waiting to enter the battlefield again. Oh, I've never heard of it. But my speed is still far from teleportation, Yang Chung said. Noriko Okawa raised the Murasame and pointed at Yang Chung from 2 feet away. Even so, I still need to go all out to have chance. Yang Chung did not take it to heart that he was being held at knife point. He glanced at the remaining 5 people and said to the short-haired lady who had not revealed her skills, "You should be the other sister of the 9-tailed white fox, the 9 lives cat demon, right?" The yellow-haired 9 lives demon cat's pupils shrank, and his dark brown pupils turned into a dark green color. He smiled evilly and said, "So, you already know who I am. Although Takamajihara is an organization, it doesn't have a leader. You must have come here to take revenge on your older sister, Yukiana, and made a decision on your own, right?" Yang Cheng asked. "That's right, but unfortunately, you seem to be much stronger than we imagined. This makes us sisters very afraid." The cat demon patted her chest and laughed strangely. Yang Cheng looked indifferent. His upper body was bare, and his hands were in the pockets of his pants. He said with great interest, "I fought with most of the secretive organizations. You people from Takamajihara are more creative. Everyone has their own inheritance. I'm looking forward to seeing something new from you." A hint of anger flashed through the 9 lives demon cat's green eyes. "Do you think we'll be afraid of you just because you can stand up again? Don't play tricks. Take this." As soon as he finished speaking, the cat demon appeared in front of Yang Cheng in the blink of an eye, like a black shadow. A sharp cat claw appeared on one of her hands, and there seemed to be a faint electric current flashing through it. She suddenly exerted force and grabbed at Yang Cheng's throat. Yang Cheng's body was much stronger than before. Although the cat demon was fast, she easily dodged to the side. On the other hand, the cat demon's sensitivity was extremely high. Since her attack missed, she turned around and swept her leg, and a spiraling gale appeared on her leg. The gale created a ripple in the air, and the door frames of the surrounding old mansions were all shattered by this gale. Only then did Yang Cheng realize that the cat demon's methods and movements were very fast. Facing the incoming gale kick, a large hand slapped down. The cat demon grunted. Her leg, which was surrounded by a strong gale, was slapped by Yang Cheng's palm. It did not gain any advantage at all. Borrowing the strength of Yang Cheng's hand, the cat demon retreated. At the same time, she supported herself with one hand on the ground and shouted, "Rise!" While Yang Cheng was still thinking about what it meant, he felt the wooden floor shake. Boom! With a loud sound, several spikes of stone and mud that looked like bamboo shoots broke out of the ground and stabbed at Yang Cheng's lower body. Damn! Yang Cheng dodged immediately, but he was still splashed with mud and was in a sorry state. Legend has it that the 9 lives cat demon gains one more tail every 9 years. With each additional tail, she can gain an additional ability to control nature. When she has 9 tails and 9 lives, she can use the 9 techniques of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. It seems like you've mastered at least 3 of them. Yang Cheng was not anxious at all as he praised. Seeing that she couldn't do anything to Yang Cheng and was even treated as a plaything, the cat demon knew that Yang Cheng was teasing her. She was furious. It's not over yet. With that, the cat demon's sharp claws extended again. They were 5 inches long, and lightning appeared everywhere. She suddenly pounced at Yang Cheng, and her speed was much faster than before. Seeing that her sisters were already fighting to the death with Yang Cheng, the 9-tailed white fox glared at Noriko Okawa. "Okawa, if you want to live, you have to cooperate with us. Are you waiting for us to die before you die? If you want to fight, then fight. You don't have to drag me into it. I'll naturally fight with him." Noriko Okawa was unmoved. The white fox glared at him hatefully. She hated that she didn't have the time to dig his eyes out. She was an expert in disguise, illusion, and mind reading. She had no confidence in a fight. If she were to join the battle hastily, she would only be a hindrance to the cat demon. Therefore, she could only be anxious at the side. Just when the white fox was hesitating, wondering if she should escape with her illusion while Yang Cheng was fighting, she didn't expect that the battle between Yang Cheng and the cat demon would suddenly change. The cat demon used her lightning claws to cover Yang Cheng's forehead. However, Yang Cheng suddenly raised his left hand and blocked her claws. The purplish-blue electric current kept crackling on Yang Cheng's hand, but Yang Cheng didn't move at all. There was nothing unusual. Seems like your cultivation is only this much. Yang Chung sighed in boredom. Then, he flipped his left hand and pushed. Ah! The cat demon screamed in pain. The sharp claws on her right hand were actually broken by Yang Cheng's seemingly light flip. Fresh blood spurted out from her fingertips. The cat demon quickly retreated to a corner and looked at Yang Cheng with hatred. She didn't look like a cat, but a ferocious female leopard. However, just as Yang Cheng was about to attack further, the cat demon's sharp claws immediately grew out again. The blood was also stopped, as though she wasn't injured at all. No wonder you're a 9 lives cat demon. Your recovery ability is very strong. Yang Cheng laughed. Humph. The cat demon was about to counterattack again when she heard the 9-tailed white fox shout, "Help!" Yang Chen's facial expression changed as he glanced around. It was unknown when the 9-tailed white fox had turned into 17. She wore a blue dress and her black hair fluttered. Her expression was sad, especially when she looked at Yang Cheng with resentment. It was as though 17 had come back to life and was standing in front of Yang Cheng. 13, don't kill anymore. Yang Cheng was stunned. Even though he knew that this wasn't the real 17, but the 9-tailed white fox's illusion, Yang Cheng was still stunned for a moment. However, in a fight between experts, a moment of distraction was enough to cause a huge turnaround. Not only did the 9 lives cat demon see the opportunity and pounce towards Yang Cheng's heart, even Noriko Okawa, who was unwilling to attack just now, had a flash in his eyes. The demon blade Muramasa was like a dragon emerging from the sea, stabbing towards the back of Yang Cheng's head. One from the front and one from the back, the pincer attack with all their strength instantly caused 2 of Yang Cheng's vitals to be attacked. However, just as the 2 thought that they were about to succeed, 17, who was standing there, suddenly widened her eyes and revealed a look of disbelief. Why, Yang Cheng, who was originally standing there, suddenly disappeared and became an afterimage. As for Yang Cheng's real body, he had already moved behind 17. A stream of blood flowed out from the corner of 17's mouth. She knelt on the ground and slowly fell to the ground. Her eyes were wide open as she died on the spot. Following the death of 17, Noriko Okawa and the cat demon's attacks all missed. They looked at the 9-tailed white fox on the ground again. Without the support of the illusion, she had already returned to her kimono form. Yang Cheng turned around. His expression was emotionless as he glanced at the woman on the ground who didn't even know how she died. My 17 is already dead. Chapter 329. Seeing the 9-tailed white fox die, just like that, the 9 lives demon cat's eyes turned red. Noriko Okawa also knew that his life was hanging by a thread, so he shouted to his remaining 2 subordinates, Hanya and Tanuki, "If you want to live, go all out." Hanya and Tanuki looked solemn, but they didn't move after hearing the order. Even an expert like Noriko Okawa couldn't do anything about it. So what could they do? As Yang Cheng approached, Noriko Okawa finally stopped holding back his strength. He raised the demon blade in his hand, and the dragon pattern on the blade that was dyed red by Yang Cheng's blood came alive again. You might not know this, but the stronger the blood, the more it can activate the power of this demon blade. I'll let you have a taste of the demon blade's energy activated by your own blood. Noriko Okawa's murderous aura burst out, and the demon blade's blood-red light scattered everywhere. He looked like an Azura from hell, and his white hair became mottled under the light. Yang Cheng quietly watched him condense his murderous aura, but he didn't move. You'll regret this. Noriko Okawa didn't make any fancy moves. He just raised the demon blade high and slashed it down vertically. He didn't need any techniques. At Noriko Okawa's realm, he had already simplified the complicated into the simplest. The most direct move was the best to display his powerful cultivation. All the murderous aura condensed on the blade, and the dragon pattern on the demon blade let out a faint roar. The mystic Dharma Lotus Sutra shone brightly. The 9 lives demon cat and Hanya could see it clearly. Was this still the demon blade Muramasa? When Tokugawa swung his demon blade at Yang Chun, a gigantic scarlet blade of light that was more than 5 feet in height struck Yang Chen's head with a thunderous roar and as swift as a clap of thunder. Because the blade was too violent and overbearing, it was 5 feet tall, its majestic aura spread in all directions. When the wind from the blade slashed across the faces of the 3 people, they actually felt a faint pain. Demon Cat and the other 2 were shocked that Tokugawa had actually hidden such a powerful killer move. At the same time, they felt a sense of hope for survival. Perhaps they could really kill Yang Chung again? At the same time, the blood-red light blade chopped down, and the roof, which was not high to begin with, was also split open. The opposite wall was also completely smashed. The entire Tokugawa family's century-old house had been cleaved into 2 by Noriko Okawa. The rain outside was getting heavier and heavier, falling on everyone's faces. The dust brought up by the huge light blade was quickly washed away by the rain. Yang Chun, who hadn't moved or made a sound, quietly waited for the light blade to land on him. Suddenly, he let out a sneer. It was this sneer that caused everyone's hopes of getting lucky to be shattered once again. Killing aura condensed into a saber. Not a bad move. It's a pity that I'm no longer the same as before. Under the overcast sky, Yang Chung, who was the only one who wasn't stained by the rain, stood unscathed. He looked mockingly at Noriko Okawa, who was slightly panting after using all his strength. Behind Yang Chung, half of the wall had collapsed, and the roof above had been blown away. However, the place where Yang Chung was standing was the only one that wasn't affected at all. Noriko Okawa's face was ashen. He took a few steps back in panic. His original calm expression was long gone, and he obviously didn't know what to do. Go, go, go. Noriko Okawa immediately commanded Hanya and Tanuki. At this moment, he wished he could gather all the ninjas from Yamada's sect. Although he knew that it wouldn't help even if he gathered all of them, as only the real masters could participate in a battle of this level. It would be better to have one more person to block Yang Chung. Tanuki was the most tactful one. Seeing that the timing wasn't right, and that Noriko Okawa couldn't fight back, he thought that it would be better for him to escape. As for the others who were good at hiding and speed, he thought that Yang Chung might not be able to catch him. Moreover, Okawa and Cat Demon were also present. Thinking of this, Tanuki took a step back and seized the opportunity. He suddenly moved stealthily and disappeared from his original spot. However, he didn't know that the entire area was already under Yang Cheng's control. How could Yang Cheng not see through Tanuki's intention? Without waiting for Tanuki to leave the house, Yang Cheng waved his hand behind him. A shapeless inner force forcefully blocked Tanuki, who was trying to escape, in the air. Bang! Tanuki's body was inexplicably blocked by an air wall that was difficult to pass through. His body shook violently, and he fell from mid-air onto the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Yang Cheng walked in front of him with an evil smile. Back when we were in Huaxia, I already didn't like you. It wasn't convenient for me to take action then, but now it's convenient. After finishing his words, he didn't wait for Tanuki to say anything. He directly stepped on Tanuki's head, who had a terrified expression on his face, and crushed it into minced meat. Due to the great progress of the Endless Resolve Restoration Scripture, Yang Chung didn't feel uncomfortable after killing a few people. He turned around and looked at the remaining 3 people. Noriko Okawa's hand that was holding the devil's knife started to tremble. He focused all his attention on Yang Chung, but his forehead was full of cold sweat. Only when one was really close to death would one feel fear. Even though Noriko Okawa had killed countless people in his life, he was still afraid of death. This wasn't a matter of courage. This was the most primitive instinct of human beings. Hanya, attack together with your father later. Fight to the death, Okawa said to Hanya, who was behind him. Hanya's expression was cold. She pulled out the short knife that she always carried with her, and a cold light flashed. Yes, foster father. Yang Chung was slightly surprised. He didn't expect Hanya to be Noriko Okawa's foster daughter. It was no wonder that when they came to Huaxia, Hanya was the leader even though Tengu was the strongest. Cat Demon, don't even think about escaping. Let's fight together, Noriko Okawa said to the hesitant cat demon. He knew that if he didn't remind her, she might want to escape. Humph! Cat demon was indeed considering whether to escape. After all, Yang Qing's combat power was too strong, and the chance of winning was close to zero. However, it didn't seem feasible to escape. After hearing Noriko Okawa's words, she knew that she could only brace herself and fight with her life. Noriko Okawa's expression was solemn. He stared at Yang Cheng and didn't dare to relax for even half a second. The Muramasa in his hand lit up and red again. However, this time, he obviously didn't have enough murderous aura to wield the light blade. He could only use his cultivation and assume a fighting posture. Hanya, you attack first. Noriko Okawa's idea was simple. He would make Hanya the vanguard first while he and Cat Demon would find a chance to launch a sneak attack together. This was his only chance. Hanya responded expressionlessly. A murderous aura gathered on the cold dagger in her hand, and her body suddenly exerted strength. Poof! A piercing sound was heard. The cold dagger suddenly pierced through Noriko Okawa's chest from behind. This change caused the situation to become strange once again. Noriko Okawa was originally staring at Yang Cheng attentively. However, he didn't expect that Hanya would suddenly launch a sneak attack from behind. The dagger pierced through his heart from the back, and the bloody blade came out from his chest. Noriko Okawa turned around slowly and saw that Hanya had retreated a few feet away. It was obvious that she was guarding against Noriko Okawa's counterattack. Resentment flashed through Hanya's eyes. Her classic oriental oval face revealed a ruthlessness that didn't match her graceful temperament. Is it strange? I've been waiting for this day for 10 years, Hanya said coldly. Noriko Okawa was already old. His extraordinary skills were based on the accumulation of his cultivation. At that moment, he had just exhausted a large amount of murderous aura and was stabbed in a fatal spot by Hanya. His eyes rolled back, and he finally died unwillingly. The demon blade, Muramasa, fell to the ground, and the red light dissipated. Yang Cheng didn't expect that there would be such a drama of an adopted daughter killing her father. However, he didn't care too much about it. He smiled strangely at Hanya and said, "If you think that I'll let you go after killing your adoptive father, you're thinking too highly of me. I'm not that generous." Hanya shook her head. "I have nothing to say if your Majesty Pluto wants to take my life. I'm just taking revenge on him for killing my entire family and humiliating me since I was young. I'm not asking for your Majesty's forgiveness." Yang Cheng came to a realization. It seemed like it was a blood feud. Coupled with the fact that she was humiliated by Noriko Okawa, her nominal adoptive father, she had been looking for a chance to take revenge. It was a pity that Noriko Okawa was too strong. Fortunately, he was forced into a dead end by Yang Cheng, which gave Hanya the chance to sneak an attack. At that moment, Yang Cheng's figure flashed again and appeared on top of a wall in the courtyard. Under the wall, the Nine Lives cat demon, who was about to escape, was shocked. She saw Yang Cheng talking to Hanya and wanted to take the chance to escape. However, she was stopped by Yang Cheng again. "Your sisters are dead. Noriko Okawa is also dead. I think you should die too." Yang Cheng smiled brightly, as if he wasn't going to kill her, but send her to a good place instead. The cat demon retreated in panic and kept shaking her head. However, she couldn't think of resisting. She turned around and wanted to escape again. This time, Yang Cheng didn't talk nonsense with her. He flashed and landed in front of her. He turned around and hit the top of the cat demon's skull with his palm. The cat demon's body shook violently. Following that, her limbs and chest swelled. With a loud bang, flesh and blood splattered everywhere. His entire body was smashed into pieces by Yang Chen's slap. There was no other way. Yang Cheng knew that this cat demon had a strong self-recovery ability. Although it was an ugly way to die, he could only use his internal energy to smash her into pieces. Hanya, who was in the house, saw this scene and her face turned pale. Even though she had killed many people, she couldn't stand such a bloody and horrifying way of dying. Yang Cheng didn't care too much. He turned around and walked back into the house. The dangerous but dramatic battle was finally coming to an end. Only the shivering female ninja was left.